welcome to the stream. Welcome. Rigged, yes, you know it. It's always rigged. Hello, at least I'm here before I pass out. Well, welcome, Silent. It's good to see you as always. And yes, you know Rain is here lurking. Censored? Why censored? Because, you know, alcohol, Twitch says censor. Language. So, oh my gosh, I missed something. Thank you for the sub. Thank you. I'm multitasking at the moment, so I won't be able to join. It's okay, Shane. Thank you for being here. Thank you for lurking. You're awesome. Thank you. 85 months. Holy cow, man. Jeez whiz. I'm partly lurking. Like, you gotta play with me. Come on. I drink all the water. Water is good. I have water too. I'm prepared for when y'all say, drink water. And I have the wine. But then I also have, this thing. These things. They're so good. This is my dessert tonight. I don't know, Frosty Tools. Thanks for the hype, Michigan. Thank you. I'm trying to get all the hype on. I probably should put some ears on. Let's find some ears today. What color do I want? Ah! All the ears. Well. Could do ears. Or I could just be weird. I'll be weird until y'all do ears. How's that sound? I'm just feeling extra tonight. Usually I'm pretty chill, but it is Friday and I'm feeling extra. It's been that kind of week, so I'm extra right now. So we're doing it. We're being a little extra and doing the goofy hat that I can't seem to get on straight when I'm looking at my own reflection. And we're being Pika. Pika. Nutty Betties. Yum. Yes, they're so good. Every time I eat one, this is gonna sound really weird. I put mine in the fridge too because I live in Florida, but every time I eat one, I think it's Flint. Because he eats them and he keeps them in the fridge, or he did eat them. He might be dieting still. Have fun with golf, but Mono, why the Twitch cup and not your own? Cause I got my own cup for my wine. And then Twitch cup for water. I don't know. It's just what I felt like getting today. I have like 37 cups. I counted when I had to move. I counted and I'm like, what one person needs that many cups? I don't know, but I do. So I use all the different cups. You need a Mono cup for water? Fun fact, I don't even own a Mono cup. I own other streamers' cups, but not my own. Maybe I need to fix that. I have my own shirt. Thank goodness I have that. But I don't have my own cup. One of my favorite cups that I never use though is probably my Stardew Valley coffee cup. I love that. We need to fix that. Right? I do need to fix that. My own cup. Especially since I came out with new designs a few months ago. But yeah. Oh yeah, this thing lights up by the way too. I should turn it on. Wiggles, I like turtle. Oh, to eat. Mono mug is best mug. Yes. There. Now we got some lights going on. Although now my face looks like super red and weird, but I don't care. It's Friday. We'll just get over it. I think my favorite cup is my Brew Father cup that holds a liter of coffee. Holy cow, that's a lot of coffee. That's a whole lot of coffee. Alright, the team's all lining up. They're getting ready for some golf. We're gonna do one round of warm-up golf that is kind of normal speed tonight. And then we're gonna follow it up with a speed round. And we may do that. We may go back and forth tonight. Like, warm you up to a map, do a speed run. Warm you up to a map, do a speed run. I don't know. We'll see. We have people that need perms? Okay, I'll hook you up. Thank you. Yeah. I have wine. We're good. Alright, let me hook some people up real quick. Let me do this. Some approved party members. Party members. Let's see. There we go. Not sure why they weren't already in there, to be honest, but it's fixed now. Drag them over. They should be able to say hi. No problem. Okay, whoa. Why no mono on a golf course? Yeah, it's gonna be wild. It's gonna be crazy. We're gonna have some fun tonight. Just wait. But yeah. Okay. Does everything sound okay? I was gonna do a sound test, but I'm just kind of like running my mouth and not doing a sound test. Because, you know, I do that once in a while just to double check that everything... Oh, crap. Check that everything sounds good. But then I forget I have two things in my ears and I kind of freak out. So we're gonna check this. We're gonna check this real quick. Not that one. Not that one. Oh, not that app. I can't find the Twitch. When you can't find the Twitch app and you're just getting started. Sounds good. I'm glad. Okay. I want to hear myself. Come on now. Okay. There. So you can kind of hear the music. All right. Now I'm gonna join in with the others. I'm gonna listen what they sound like.
Fire.
Hi everyone.
Oh,
This
dear
yeah.
fucking God.
We're live. What?
Welcome. Hi, live.
It's so loud.
I'm loud?
No,
I hit
no.
my headset. I had to adjust.
Yeah, you came in fucking just screaming to me.
Right.
like a street.
It's not you, it's us.
Hey, Splits.
Yo,
Look what I got.
Show me the code again.
is it
Nutty
out of
bar.
the freezer though?
It was in the fridge.
No.
Does that count?
Give me a second.
That's close
Dude,
enough.
I grew up on nutty bars. Come on.
If you have any more,
It's a
put
nutty
some-
buddy.
I do.
Put
Nutty
them
bar.
in the freezer.
Okay, I'll do that
Trust
because that
me.
sounds delicious.
Oh Lord.
I grew up with this.
Yes,
Really,
Yeah,
nutty
they're
all
like-
the
bars.
voices silent.
They're almost like a ice cream.
You'll be
No.
able to
Dude, it
peel
made
the
me
layers
play
apart
football
once
better.
they're frozen and like eat each one individually. It's,
No,
it's
I don't do that.
glorious.
No, I eat it.
Just eat it.
Okay,
No, trust me,
I
I grew up
did
in
a
nutty
sound
bars.
test.
Nobody can fight me.
we're all kind of
I've had
loud, but that's okay.
Billions of them.
I want you to be able to hear them. Not hear them. Not.
Yeah, no, Nutty Buddies are amazing. That's like the
Yeah.
only little
Nutty Bar.
Debbie anything that I like.
I
Every
call it
time I
nutty
s-
bar. I've
Every
always
time
did
I
when was
see
little.
them, I go, "Ooh, Splints just put those in the fridge," but now I know it was the freezer. Thanks for the
Freezer,
lurk. Enjoy
freezer.
your sleeps. Thank you.
Put it in
thank
the
you, thank you.
microwave.
Oatmeal cream pie cookies, they're pretty fantastic too. The rest of Little Debbie, not so good.
Hey.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
I guess I'm different because I would prefer a warm.
Nice.
I
nutty
do
bar.
like
prefer,
I
Hostess
prefer-
over Little Debbie, to be honest.
I
What do you mean
prefer.
warm? What do you mean? Like room temperature or like
Yeah,
heat it
yeah.
up? Because it's gonna melt.
Well, it depends on where you live. Yeah, Florida, everything melts and it's nasty unless you put it in the fridge.
No, I prefer warm. Nutty
You
bar.
might actually be able to separate your Nutty Bar even though it's only been in the fridge. It's probably cold enough to separate.
Mhm.
I'm literally
I'm
tasting
not challenging
what
you,
she's
but
tasting.
I'm just saying it's possible.
Yeah,
literally tasting
I just
what
want to
she's
keep one hand clean for the keyboard.
Mm-hmm,
fair.
I agree.
Should have been using chopsticks, lady.
I tell you what.
With this?
Eating
With
Nutty
this?
Buddies
Yeah.
with chopsticks?
Why not?
Have
Oh.
you ever- do you know how big a...
You bite off one end, it
Split.
falls right off.
It's a little early for that.
I'm just saying, trying to pick up a freaking Nutty Buddy with
I would drop it
chopsticks
on my
is, like,
keyboard.
awkward.
Or in my
Nutty
wine.
bar.
Yeah, it is.
It's like picking up a hot dog with a chopsticks.
Mhm.
Like, why would you?
This is when Michigan's different because we call it nutty bar.
tongs might
That's
work
what I
better.
said. Oh, I said
No, you
Nutty
said
Buddy.
buddy.
That's
Yeah,
a nutty
yeah,
buddy.
you're
Yeah,
right. You're
that's
right.
what they're called. But yeah.
Well,
Nutty
we've
Bar is
always.
the off-brand
Right.
or something.
No, we've always called it that way. Everybody around.
But there was one
All
time
my
that I was
life
ta-
I've been searching for something.
So I know they're called Nutty Buddies, but I've always called them Nutter Butters, and I know they're not Nutter Butters because Nutter Butters are different.
Yeah, I don't call
Mhm.
it correctly, obviously.
Yeah,
So
those are
I
the
told
peanuts
Dalton-
with the peanut between them.
Yeah, there
right?
was one time that I told Dalton, I'm like, I want Nutter Butters, and I meant Nutty Buddies.
Yeah, and he
He
comes
got me
back
Nutter
with a
Butters,
little,
I'm like, I don't want
you're like,
those.
you know, I'm not mad, but give me some Nutella.
Dude, my
It
mom
was like-
used to-
I said the wrong thing.
my mom would make me a peanut butter jelly sandwich, and I get the Nutty Bar, and then I get a juice
See.
box. That's probably what's so
Try to turn this
crazy.
up.
Oh,
This
that
is
sounds
sugar.
like the best time ever.
That was my lunch.
Dude, that
Hey,
was the
sugar,
better
where's
childhood
Why
lunch
is it
than
so
I
red?
can remember.
My
Colors.
mom made my lunch every day. I guess that's
Anyway.
better than having.
My lunches are ridiculous, dude.
You just had like a protein bar and some omega.
No, it
Y'all
was
ready for-
mostly ramen.
A
Well, back
chill
in the
round.
day, it was good.
I'm good to go.
A warm-up round of golf.
Nowadays,
Before
Can
we
you
do
imagine
craziness?
why my blood pressure is high?
Yeah,
It's
I need
days when he
So I
was
think you still haven't
6 years
password.
old. We're feeding him fucking ramen. Sorry.
It's up
So
in
I-
the
How dare
chat.
you say
It's the
words.
same as last time.
Oh, yeah, I Still got
have
have
it
it set to speed.
Three.
model. I'll just have to wait till it times out because it's gonna
Yeah.
time out here.
Good.
I'm gonna go to the bathroom, perfect timing, and then we'll
I'm joking.
get
Big joint back up.
Okay.
Then I'm
Alright,
gonna
you
play
better
it.
hurry, Michigan.
Jamie,
Dude, it
just
takes me
don't
like
click on it. Just type the password and
How are
then
you
click
using it?
OK. Like if you click in the box, you need to
Lemon?
click back
Oh
in
no,
the
what did
box
Lemon do?
and then type.
God damn it.
So just type
What did
as soon as
Lemon
it comes up. This game is so backwards with that. I don't understand why.
I failed the. Gotta click it.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
I
when
got
it
it.
first comes up, Jamie, just start typing.
Hockey romance.
Don't click on
Interesting.
it. Don't do anything. Type and then click.
I didn't know there was
I'm
such a
on book
thing.
There
three.
you go.
This of just this series, I'm on book 3, Mono.
Mhm.
There are 5 in total in this series, but then there's also
In college.
another
Trust me,
series
I
that
know.
takes place. It's also hockey romance. That's 3 books.
One of the
And then
books
there's,
has
like,
the Red Wings
more
game
books.
in it.
It does.
Is that not what I sent you?
They're trying to talk about how Red Wings are so sexy.
Oh,
Oh, I didn't
geez.
send it to him. That's why. Okay.
And it takes place in.
I'm so jealous
so
of
it's
those nutter
Me.
bars.
three ones.
It's so crispy,
Oh,
crunchy, peanut buttery. It's so good.
The pirate.
Alright,
game
guys, you
one,
ready?
Yeah.
I'm
the-
ready.
Roll.
I'm as
The
ready as I can be
Zakulo?
after watching you eat that.
Let's
just
I
play.
want toe.
I can't hear Jamie. There's too
Want me to
much
stand the
You gotta adjust
But
everybody's
at
volumes too.
that the combat and the pirate one that I'm playing is the
Let's
one like
roll.
in the old one where it's not turn based. It's
Is this? Hold on, dude. We're live. People are listening. Like,
oh, yeah,
I
well, this is about a game.
Yeah.
Nothing.
so sorry. We're playing golf with friends, which you're a part of.
Well, golf would maybe.
Is this
French.
speed golf or just regular calm, cool?
I mean,
golf?
I could mention what I was doing with planets all week, but you know, I don't think you guys want to hear more about that.
Is this speed?
Where's my
Fucking-
mouse?
Did you turn? Okay, no.
Well, it's not speed.
How do you
It's
play
not
this game?
It's not.
This is
speed,
the
'cause
warm-up
I
round.
tried to stop. I tried to stop.
We're doing the warm-up
Well,
round of this version,
clearly-
this course, and then we're gonna do the speed round of
I
this
have
course.
no idea. How are you jumping?
You
click
Spacebar. I mean, click your mouse. Yeah. Click jump.
After you shot, every click
I
is
haven't
a
played
jump.
this game in a long time.
Just,
Yeah, left
Oh,
click.
no, you have to be a
dude.
No
professional.
worries.
Nate, see when you get to the
Yeah,
end,
yeah, yeah, I did. I figured it out. I figured
if
it
you
out.
double click or you
Okay, yeah,
Hey,
everybody's
he got
playing
it,
putt,
Aiden.
putt.
Don't worry, I figured it out. I figured it out.
A to B.
It's already hot.
Oh, whoops.
Fuck.
Sorry.
Thanks. You gave me a hole in one.
It's hot.
Because I
Dude,
definitely
I
did a
got
rim
me
job.
pushed out of
because
the
I
hole.
went way off course.
Who pushed me out of the hole?
You don't want to know.
Hold on.
That's why the
I
lights are
thought you
down
guys
low.
were my
I'm
friends.
checking the temperature in the house. 'Cause it's hot in here.
I'll be
It's
honest.
getting
I
hot
have
in here.
straight
You
up
know the
changed.
answer to that
That's a
one.
lot of
I
threes.
I have missed this so fucking much.
Nate, I
What do you
like how
Hey,
mean?
can someone-
It's been
Oh, no.
happening.
Okay, how are you just like?
He like manages to
That
miss
was
every
not the
time
way
I
I
play
wanted to
golf
do it.
somehow.
Come on,
So
I keep
That's
hitting
his
people.
own fault. It's been happening.
Oh, wow, that
Hey,
bounce.
Nate, can you
That's
put me
bad.
a little bit from there?
No.
So Nate,
Just a little bit.
I hit
can,
you first.
try and cut
You're the one
corners.
that caused me issues.
Try and cut
Just-
corners, but
I'll figure it out. Don't worry, I'll figure it out. I know you can jump.
Where
It's
is
just the
Here goes
double-
my lead.
yeah.
You, know,
Kimono,
you
I'm
remember in
coming
the
after you last
90s
time.
double clicking the mouse, what that used to imply? I don't know.
Kimono, I'm coming after you last
I'm just here to play.
I,
whee!
for one, remember
Oh,
back
that
at
was the wrong way. What?
time.
Missed it. Just
That was
missed
the
it.
wrong way
I'm
to
so
move
sorry.
you.
I ran into somebody and I feel really bad about that.
I will so
Alrighty, people.
So I will say,
Just missed it for a
Yeah.
whole one.
Wiggles, you can back the fuck
I
up,
normally
mate.
get hole ones.
Back the fuck
Oh, that's
up,
the wrong
mate.
hole.
That's what
That's
she said.
what James.
Oh, what? How did
What
that go
the
over
hell?
the fucking lip? Okay.
Jamie, I think you need some practice if you can't find the hole.
First of all, you should probably watch what you're saying.
I'll look up a
It's not
tutorial
that
online
obvious.
to
Watch
find
your
the
mouth.
hole.
To be
You-
fair.
You better watch
You
your
know,
mouth,
just a
son.
little bit of a filter between.
You know what would have helped with this though? Having the flag indicator on at all times would have been
I already know this course. I
Oh,
don't
that used
need
to be my biggest gripe is where's the flag? Yeah.
When it comes
Out,
to,
by the
when
way,
it,
with your
when it,
wheel as well.
yeah, when it comes to
Honestly,
corners,
I just go
I
by
missed. I missed.
Ah, man.
I just do the C and
Okay,
space
so-
bar to find the flag.
I never do.
No,
I
but
just go by
okay.
the
On some of the later courses, if you don't leave the flag on, we have no idea where the friggin' flag is.
Yeah.
I never do. Even on a
Like
Even on
forest
a
is
course.
easy because it's always right in front of you, basically.
Yeah.
But like the other
Gotta
courses
jump.
are so confusing.
Ah,
You have to have the flag indicator, otherwise you're just lost.
I probably just
Oh,
play
I
too
need to let
much.
my cat in. Give me a second, I need to let the cat in.
That might
Thank
be
you,
great.
Holo.
Hurry back.
No, I'm actually doing horrible. Usually I'm up to really.
He's let Nathan know that we had a full fucking. I feel if I say it, he's not gonna fucking
Whoop,
believe
I
me.
went
but-
way too far, but I came back.
What?
Oh,
Don't you shame your brother for his pajama pants. You
Oh.
shut your mouth.
did anybody
Push,
see what I
motherfucker.
just did?
I think they're
I
closing.
went past
I'm playing
the hole
terrible.
and came back
Okay.
into it.
Can we please let Nathan know that we have a full metric system for this game? Being
Oh, the full year.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Where's Rose?
Oh
I-
no, the metric
I-
system.
Cheat with everything. Don't worry.
I
Mhm,
I
happening.
think you would fucking love
Lady,
it. Oh,
would you
happy.
Only-
stop quoting me on that on purpose?
Senpai.
Going back.
Oh, mate.
But it's so much fun to be.
Hey, whatever. We
Remind
went
me.
past
I-
the hole and got
It's
back
Niwu.
into it, so whatever.
And I knew. I forgot about that one.
At least you knew where it was.
that was a time. Ooh, it's time measurement.
Oh, what?
I think it's 30 minutes or 15 minutes. I don't remember.
Wait, which
Like
phrase?
2.5 yeets.
Nate, I have a two
No,
and a half.
yeets are part of like the measurements.
Measurements, yeah.
Yep, that's the thing.
What was a
But time
measurement,
is-
though? I don't.
Time was D's nuts
Oh,
and
right.
something else. I don't remember.
I think these nuts was like 10 minutes. Ooh is like 5, and then
Oh, we got him here.
I don't know. Ray
I
can
don't-
pull it up.
Honestly, I don't
Oh
want
my
to waste
God.
my brain because I already had two. I already got
I
two brain
forgot
cells.
that was a quote.
Right, get me back in the swing of things. Okay, I haven't played this game in a long time.
You forgot that was a
Anyways,
quote.
get it in the hole. It's
Yeah.
very
Everybody
simple.
Ah, brain.
Get in the hole.
Rain getting called out by the quotes.
I couldn't remember what 78 was.
Anyways, Nate, just get it in the hole. It's very
Yay.
simple.
do not get off.
Like
Hold
take-
on. You know what it actually says though is I do not get off that quickly. Thought.
Yep.
So that's
Yeah.
weird. I know you
Alright.
meant to
Oh,
say
no.
though, but
Typos.
Well, you're a thought though.
I'm sure
I
it
guess
feels
I'll take
poetic
it.
though. Like I feel like you could write an entire essay on the topic of I do not get off on quickly.
I
thought.
don't even remember
fix
that in the Placid Duck Simulator. I don't know. I don't even remember that phrase.
there was a
What the
competition that
I'm trying
happened
to pick
like
a
a
shot.
long
I
time
can't
ago.
even line it up.
regarding what the measurements were. Like, you know how you got like on your bar at the bottom, it was like split into quarters. So we developed a mathematic.
Oh no! Why did I have to?
Genuinely a mathematic solution.
And it does
as
no
to
good to
what
play
it
with
meant.
your left
It
hand.
does.
Put it away.
You were referring to your left hand, but you did not say left.
Yeah. So it became like a
That's why
measurement
it's
of
With your hand.
Ooh.
Put it away.
I think that was a first to me.
So silly.
half an E,
Oh,
an
why did
equal
that
E.
fall?
Guys, I just got a hole in one
No way.
on this particular hole. There's
I'm
no
getting
way.
this.
I'm in disbelief.
Wow. That seems unreal too.
Oh, I have.
It
involves
I play,
jumping
yeah.
Missed it by a
jumping to the
smidgen.
right and hitting the hill
What the fuck is this? This is how it is.
after the fans
No, that's-
outside of the
Michigan.
gate.
I want
There
you
we
to-
go.
Oh my god, I'm not
One
even
roll.
reading that one out loud from Michigan.
I got we tweet.
What?
That you're
I can't
quoting
remember
chat.
what all
I'm not
these
even
are,
reading
so
that.
I'm like,
I'm not even reading that one out loud.
slowly.
I'll have to remember the positioning if
Oh
I
my
want to
God.
duplicate
Sorry,
that. I don't
I
know if I
It's an old
can.
one.
Boogie for once, man.
Never the wrong hole.
Oh.
There is no wrong hole, Wiggles.
There's
Crisis
always a
Code
hole
said
that you
about
want to
me.
choose at that
Yeah,
moment
Crisis
in time.
definitely said that. It's a very Crisis
I
thing
always
to
try
say.
this and it never works out. Oh,
Never.
except for this
damn it.
time.
Doesn't happen.
It worked out quite
Are
well.
we almost?
Dude, I could have
50?
pushed you. You just went in
Whoa.
too hard.
What number are we on?
Yeah, I
Oh,
definitely
I'm
went
sorry,
too
I
hard.
didn't ask for assistance.
I
Or
wanted to
ask
help you in,
assistance.
brother. Is what I do.
There was a full mathematical system as to what we thought was for this game. So see how it's split into quarters. So
Here, you milking on 'em.
we started calling it like half an
What
E.
you did by inviting
I know, boss.
Yeah, you made evil.
Oh my
man.
god, Stardew. Would leave it at
Half
Stardew.
a-
I was like, what the hell did I say? And then I saw Stardew and I explained it all.
Doesn't matter, bro.
Ooh,
Doesn't matter.
careful.
Okay, go.
I'm winning.
Stardew
was
like,
Yeah,
I'm slowly
Yes.
getting better.
It was a cow in Stardew.
Cow.
You use like full blasting up here. Like,
No.
how do you-
Ah, what happened to
That's what
me?
Nate says a lot. But no, take your time. Take your time.
Just as much,
Oh.
just as much as
Ew.
quick double jump
But
over.
I have nipples, Greg. Can you milk me?
I love that scene.
why to get
See if you go slower.
I'm winning this.
Nate cheats.
There's a double jump.
Alright, Nate has a
Look at all
quote
these
now.
tight ass positions.
Are
It's
we full
crazy.
blasting up here?
Get in!
Yes.
No full yeet. No full yeet.
No full yeet.
winning this.
Team.
Yeet, no full yeet.
Shane, I'm just like going through because I'm like, I don't remember what's what.
All the quotes, yes. We're just laughing at ourselves because it's great.
Do you know
Yeah,
what?
we're special.
See, whenever I'm playing golf with friends, it's the one fucking core memory that I'm just like, that was
Sir.
hilarious. And I'm
I
trying
did not
to
consent to
forever
this.
recreate
Sir.
that.
Excuse me. This is our.
I'm joining-
corner,
I'm
not
joining.
your
Alright, let me see.
corner.
Alright.
Sorry, Wiggles.
I mean, thanks.
Nope, I'm glad I'm not
All right, I think
Play
I'm
it.
in front of
Fuck.
most of you. Can you let me?
Yeah,
touch
you are. Yeah, I
No.
will.
No.
Okay.
I'll let all you.
Oh my god, you
See.
pushed me.
Yeah.
I love it. It made
Wrong
it
thing.
easier.
Oh, wrong thing.
I know, that's usually how it works. Usually when I push people, it gets...
Hacks rigged.
Oh
I
no!
can't get my
I could help you.
satisfaction.
Come on.
So just
People need to
push me.
realize I'm the medic over here. I'm gonna
Why
push
you
everybody.
kitty?
He's real upset with me.
Green.
At least I didn't
Take
miss
it.
type 500 into
I got
5,000
sick
this
of my
week.
water.
Sorry, I was playing with my pussy.
Oh!
Okay, breathing.
And people wondered why the stream
Well,
is censored.
She's been in
Hello.
those hockey romance stuff.
Aficionados,
Yeah.
aficionados.
I'm sure she's referring to the cat, but yeah.
Definitely the cat.
Is it?
So,
Fuck, who's the racing tank? Which one do you
Well,
fuckers?
she just
Alright,
loves those
that's
books
me.
a lot.
I intended to go
Oh.
around you, not in front of you.
Here, Rain.
Come on.
Wait.
right, tank, don't
I coulda
tank.
got that
don't
in.
You move tank.
I'm actually
Yo.
Right,
Hank
Quote,
was already
I
in the
get
hole
tired,
before
I
you
get
even tried to
sleepy.
move,
Things
dude.
happen.
Suck a wee bit, buddy.
I'm in
True.
third place by 1. I'm winning.
And I get
guys.
sleepier faster when I drink, so we'll see.
I get
Here you go.
better.
Here's another one for you.
Oh no, I went
Oh,
beyond
damn.
it. I went beyond it. That's not so cool.
You just gotta get it in the V.
Oh
Beyond
shit,
it
that's not the
twice.
quote. Which
I
one is
just
it?
Get it in the V.
Oh, it's
I'm
42.
not bragging.
No.
Get it in the V.
Kimono
Kimono said.
Which
Kimono said
one
get it in the
is
V.
that? Oh no.
Oh, Rogan!
Oh yeah.
Oh, Smoko's
No.
touching my ball. 42. Go to the top of the V
Honestly, I
and
think
you
we all
just
need the
roll
Bible too.
in. You know, what if
And
we had
that's
like
what
a
I did.
quote for every hole? That would be nuts.
Man,
A quote
It's
for every
like-
hole you say.
Oh yeah. Did you end up watching Pokemon? I did. I watched it really late, so I didn't. I
did.
kind of want to watch it again.
I shared
But-
it.
Bro.
That was-
I wanna
I've
play
never
all
done
the
it that way.
Pokemon
I've never done
games.
it.
Never
I know, wait,
seen
say,
Still
I've never
haven't
done it.
played the
that way.
cafe one. I'm definitely playing the Pocket TCG. I've been doing that for a little while now.
Oh
Let me
boy.
go first.
I want to watch those
I'm gonna
stories with the stop motion. I haven't got a chance to
Get
watch
outta
any of
here.
those yet.
Yeah, brother.
Yeah, I'm
What
glad
about
my
you,
dog
Shane?
didn't see
I'll snap into a Hulk
The-
Hogan.
the cat.
What if we had a
Because-
quote for every
Good
hole?
satisfaction.
I had to stop playing. What is it? Descent because the dog. We get all excited because
I
it
know,
saw
Zay-
a dog
Jay,
on
yeah.
the screen.
Nice.
So it got all excited because it saw
Oh,
the
dude.
dog on the
About
screen.
TA.
It jumped up on the thing and it was like whining and getting excited. Its tail was wagging. I'm like,
Oh,
dude,
we're
the dog's
tied,
not
man.
real.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
like 5 people
Dog is
tied
on
right now.
TV.
This is the one
So
fucking hole I
excited about
hate.
Z and A.
One hole I hate. I can't fucking.
It
do
looks
I can't,
like
Yeah.
they're making Pokemon more and more complicated, so
Oh,
I'm
not enough.
scared.
No.
I like simple,
Someone
easy
fucking- I
games.
can't-
I'm terrible.
I can't for the life. Like this is. what I
Ah!
Because
Trying to
you're
jump high.
You're not supposed to
Why does
aim
it
lower
keep
on that
sending me
one.
way the fuck over?
There
I'm
we go.
barely getting onto it.
I-
Yeah, it does that.
I fucking hate this hole with
And
a
then I got a Pokecat.
We
Sorry.
hate you.
I
Hi,
think I just
Dusty!
won this
Thank
round.
you so much for the watch
Fuck.
streak.
Did
Thank you, thank you.
What did you
Yeah.
get? You get a 2? A
I
1?
did,
Yeah,
and I
word.
loved it. Also, Mono,
Yeah,
you
where's
need
that?
to
A 2
finish
or 3?
Scarlet
Is
Violet
this the par
Legends
4?
of Arceus
Oh,
before
yeah.
you
You
start
won by
swinging
1
into
then.
this.
I did
spin-off.
too.
I got a 3. I got a
Aw.
3.
I was really hoping that the
Well, Wiggle cheats anyways.
the stop motion one with the
He
was
called
it the
his guys
Pokemon
6
Resort
turns
or whatever it was called? I don't remember what it's called.
Mhm.
But I want that to be a game.
The
I
Pokemon
wanted that to be a game.
No. If you watch the
Oh.
Pokemon Presents from yesterday,
She's
you'll
licking
know
my
what we're talking
water.
about.
Yes.
Oh, 2 points from 69 Cyborg. So close, so close. Wiggles
69
killing it with
is-
a 37.
By the way, Nathan, if you get a 69, you have to.
No,
drink.
you didn't. You didn't win. You tied. There's a
Why
difference.
That
can I not
champion.
continue?
I'm super excited about Champions too because Switch and your phone.
Yeah,
That's fucking cool.
champions.
I'm sorry,
I wish I
it's
would
just-
have got into what is it called? Is it Unite? The
Oh yeah, the one that
I
you're
played
battling
it, like,
each other.
I played it like a short bit, but then I didn't.
It looks like it's very like hot style.
Great,
Like
I'll be
it's
right
very Heroes of the
Yeah,
Storm
exactly.
type.
Minutes.
Yeah, but Champions the one that's gonna be on mobile, right? Because it's like
Mhm.
Pokemon Coliseum kind of thing.
Yeah, it's gonna be mobile and Switch, which is really freaking cool.
hmm
Will it be cross compatible?
Yeah. From the looks of it, yeah.
I got
That's gonna
my
be
bazooka
cool.
cat here.
No, it's not actually. It's
Oh,
really
it says
not
flag
that.
indicator always on.
No, I mean design wise.
No.
I could see it with like an Xbox or something, but with a
Fine.
Switch.
Well, no, it's not gonna be like a regular Pokemon game. It's literally just gonna focus on battles.
Champions.
So,
gonna be
like,
cool.
You can transport like I have Pokemon Home, and you can literally take all of your
Be my
Pokemon from the
parrot.
different games that
Yeah.
you played, put them in Home,
my
and then like
God.
send them off to Champions, like you
I
have been
know.
with,
I
like, the
can't
other games.
believe that. Cause I have so many Pokemon in home, and it makes me want to transfer more from Go like really quickly and see what
Yeah.
stats they roll into.
Pokemon Go is a big thing. I live in a small town on an island, so there's only
Uh-huh.
like 3 gyms in my town.
alone.
You guys might
Oh,
like
no!
Outside all the time. I would go around and just like fire all my Pokemon in the gyms and just dominate the only 3 gyms in this town. It was really good fun.
So you were the
If you like
OP gym
Mario,
leader.
Well,
You like,
until
you like
like all the little
Pokemon, that
squeakers
is.
decided to like
Yeah,
actually
we have fun
I
with
mean,
it,
I pay
take-
yearly for Pokemon Home.
It's basically Pokemon Stadium for, yeah,
played
Pokemon
Pokemon
Stadium,
on my
Pokemon
phone.
Coliseum. Like on the GameCube, I think it was Coliseum,
and I
but yeah.
blame Lady and.
We got nothing but normal types here.
I mean, technically, Power World's not Pokemon, but it looks all. You still
We
do
have
the same
some
thing.
like
I
grass. and
haven't
all that
played
type of
Power
stuff
World
here.
yet. I
Oh,
have
it's
it. I
good.
should
If you
play
like,
it.
if you like, yeah, if you
Bro,
like
I'm
cute
totally with you on that.
animals, it's really, it's basically just like Pokemon, but it's not. There's a whole thing about, it, but
Pokemon
it's
are.
basically
Yeah, it's
you,
a whole
it has the
lawsuit.
same. You throw a
Forget
ball,
that I
you
water
venture
box
it.
half my shit.
That's it.
It's
I
for
don't
fun.
want all.
Alright.
Oh, okay.
So when
That's how
everyone
the
gets
wire looks
back
like over
and we
there.
get back from commercial break, we're gonna do a speed round of Forest. So speed round
I can
is
hardly
you go as
even
fast as you
handle it.
can, and the first one in the hole wins. It doesn't matter how many times it takes you to do
You're
it.
the story of my life.
Oh my god.
That's why I'm a champion.
Jeez.
I'm a
Oh,
champion.
Oh, do we have a commentator for Frosty Tools since we're on an ad break? Splints?
Splints is,
Bass hole in hole. I don't know.
Where is Sponge? Hold on, give me a chance. I'll get Sponge.
We
No,
gotta
it's
wait for
okay.
Splints to get back.
I'm not
Yeah.
cool enough. I can't
Oh,
have
I got a
chat
fan road
open.
up.
But what's
Cool.
funny with
Oh,
I can't
also
have chat
Pokemon
open
Go
because I
has
don't
lots
have
of like
any
free
channels.
legendaries that you can literally get from Bad right now because of Pokemon Day being yesterday. So don't forget to grab those real
I
quick before
wonder
they're
why I
off.
got. Are you guys talking about the Pokemon game? that
Get
we're
them from
playing?
what, Mono?
Pokemon Go, the legendaries.
Yeah.
Yeah, did you get
I
them
don't
yesterday?
play Pokemon cool. I'm not
How
cool
the fuck do you get them? That's what I was asking.
Like under
Pokemon Day.
achievements, when you scroll down after you like pass the view rewards, just past the view rewards on the event for Pokemon Day, they were all there, like a bunch of like catch.
And it has, and
That wasn't really for Pokemon Day, but yeah,
Yeah,
that's for the Unova crap
Yeah.
that they're doing. It's
I
not for
played the
Pokemon Day.
better.
but there's
I played the
tons
trading
of them,
card
and you
one,
can
that's
grab
better.
them.
Okay.
I know, I
Well,
grabbed it
well,
all. I
well,
didn't realize that's what
okay.
you were talking about.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. That's what I mentioned last night. I think I messaged you last night about it. I was
You
like,
did, but I had no idea what the heck you were talking about. I thought you were talking about something different.
Why are you talking about Pokemon? My eyes have.
Okay, so I can send Pokemon.
Let's face got a little bit of comedic side, like you take a sheep
Pokemon,
and put it in
gotta
a
catch
turret,
them all.
like a little gun turret, and a sheep.
Okay,
Anyways, Monty
Unova,
needed food too.
Mons,
Well,
best
I
Mon.
give them money.
Yeah, I got a bunch of
Right.
Pokemon yesterday.
So
It was
what's
so
the speed,
cool.
speed golf? Just like quickest win.
Yeah, the quickest
fastest
in
to the
the hole.
hole. Doesn't matter how
There's
many
more to it.
strokes it takes.
S.
You gotta be quick.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Ask
exactly.
Michigan.
I never used
How
that.
I
quick
never
can you
played
be?
with the Unova. Shane.
Exactly, Mono. How many strokes it takes first in the
I
hole?
never
His
played
head.
with
This is
Wayne.
great.
Whoever's in the
I
hole
do it in
first
one.
gets
That's
the
what I do. I
gift
do it.
of.
The quicker you get there, the better it is.
Oh, Splints, we need an announcer. I know
Then you can
the
go to
ads
bed
have probably
faster.
passed, but we need our announcer for
Okay, hold
Frosty
on,
Tools.
hold on. I'm out of breath, but hold on.
Okay. Turning
Attention!
you up.
Coming soon to a chat near you in a world of wild Pokemon escapes and elusive quotes, KimonoKat's chat is a roller coaster of emotions. Lady Rain dives into hockey romance novels while the community battles for elusive catches. Quotes fly as fast as golf balls in golf with your friends, with KimonoKat at the helm, turning on their hacks for an epic stream. Will they ever catch them all or just laughs? Stay tuned. Chatty Summy. I can't even read that. What does that say?
Chat
summary
trailer?
Yeah! Fuck yeah!
Chat Summy. Yes.
Somebody can
Folks,
read.
get in here
Hell
with
yeah.
hashtag
That's awesome.
Chat Summy.
Somebody can read.
And that announcement was brought to you by the one and only Splints. Wait till the next commercial break, and we'll
Hold
give
on,
you another
sponsored
announcement.
by.
No, it's brought to you by Pfizer.
Whoops.
Easy! So
Whoops.
good to see you, lovely! At your beautiful
Hello.
face. Are you excited for all the new Pokemon news?
Another episode?
Pokemon!
Lady, can we get a
Apparently.
stretch? Not a stretch break.
Gotta
A
catch them
arm.
all.
Alright, stretch break. Anybody
Like
ready for
so.
speed golf?
Yeah. give me
Are
a
we
second.
ready?
Coronavirus.
Well, she has the power.
Gotta
I'll
catch
be
them all.
I can't.
I'll be
I have
ready in
the
2
money.
minutes.
Is what it is.
I can't
Okay,
catch them.
remember
Yes,
C
oh,
is to do camera,
Guncho?
space
Oh,
bar is
God.
to elevate the camera, mouse moves it around, WSD moves the camera around. But the most
There we
important
go,
part
look
of
at
that.
speed
All the
golf
best
is
Mm, super strong.
It
Break.
Not
stops,
much
it's the
unless
break.
there is a new Eevee,
I'm
right?
scared.
Oh,
I'm
I
scared.
heard there was gonna be a new Eevee and they canceled it because of
It's
fandom.
not perfect, but
No.
it breaks.
I don't know if
Wow.
it's true or not, but I heard it got canceled.
I
There
don't
was going to be a
think- you'll
flying
find out real
Eevee,
quick.
I heard, and they canceled it
I
because the fandom
saw-
drew one almost exactly like the one they were going to release, so they canceled it. That's what I heard.
So,
So,
I saw a TikTok this morning. If you notice,
Happy birthday!
the
I wasn't aware this was going to be the gun show.
listen,
Is
if you notice in the ZA trailer, the hot
Boy.
air balloon with all of the evolutions, or at least
Nate's
in
got
the,
bigger
in
muscles
the
than me.
Pokemon Day stuff. If you
Uh-huh.
notice the hot air balloon, there's colors corresponding to every evolution
Put it away.
except for one.
Oh, yeah! See? And it was white, wasn't it?
Yes,
At
it
least
was.
it wasn't something
It was
else.
white because it was going to be a flying type Pokemon, and it looked too much like
So
fan
it
art.
might not.
So we didn't get it because of fans like me creating Ghost Eevee. They
So
cancel it.
might not even be a flying type. It could be a dragon type. It could be a ghost type. It could be poison.
It could be Ghost.
Or fighting.
I seen a
Who
picture
the
of a
fuck
flying
knows?
type though that was
I still
supposedly
don't
similar,
understand how
Yeah.
ghosts work.
and it had like its ears were the wings, and it was so
It'd be
cute.
interesting.
Nathan,
It'd be really interesting to
I
have.
hope they
like,
don't
a,
either, Eevee. I
dragon
want it.
type
I want a new
evolution,
Eevee.
And it be like an Eastern
I'm
type
working on this.
dragon instead of a Western dragon.
Well, can we get it in the
Right.
hole,
What
please?
is
Thank you.
that
Yes.
No.
It's time. It's time to roll.
To-
He can be a combo of the other Eevees. That would be cool, like an all powerful Eevee that has like
I'm not
every.
Like comment.
Okay.
Alright guys, here we go. We're gonna do a round of speed golf. Goal is to get it in the hole as fast as you can. First one that ends wins. Doesn't matter how many times you hit the ball. Doesn't count against you. So let's go. Ready,
Question before
set.
you do it.
No.
Uh-huh.
Before you do it. Is
What?
collision on?
Yeah,
it's
collision's on.
You can see it right there.
Of course.
Of course,
Turn
dude.
it
In
on.
speed golf, you have to
Yeah.
have collision.
So it's
Yeah.
Otherwise, why are you
How
doing
the fuck
it?
am I? How else am I gonna knock you the fuck out my way?
Well, I'm
If
off
it-
to
if
some
it-
things. Have a good
if it
stream.
touches
Thank you
the
so
ball,
much for stopping by. It's so
balls
good to
will be
see
held
you.
like that.
Good luck with
Alright,
your things
well,
and
I
stuff.
can guarantee
That
you,
was-
I'm going to
And happy birthday.
Good
That's so awesome.
that
Your
was
birthday is the
awesome.
same day as
live stream.
Pokemon Day. So lucky.
Okay, well, my bad.
Anyways, because that was awesome.
Alright.
But how
Ready?
can I knock you out of the way?
go.
Set.
Go.
Go. It does its own countdown, but we're getting there.
Yeah, everybody, let's fight.
It does its
Sorry.
own. Let's go.
Everybody was
Rain
forced
needs
for
a handicap.
speed
She needs to count to
Looking for
1001
quick
before she
goals.
starts.
No.
I'm winning this.
She does.
Alright, I'm not even.
Oh come on.
Oh no, I got bumped.
Fuck
And
yeah.
I'm not the person
I got in 6 seconds, boys.
Rain needs a handicap, I swear.
Which I
Suck a
don't.
dick. Suck a
She
dick.
does.
Oh fuck this.
I think she just has faster internet.
On my
Nate,
first
you have
shot, I
kids.
was like, oh, I gotta wait for the ball to come.
No,
through.
but that's what I'm gonna blame it
No,
on.
I don't.
Faster
No, I
than
don't.
you, Mono, but I
Wow,
don't
lady
know.
got it in
She has
5
faster
seconds.
internet.
Impressive.
0.02
Mine's
faster
500
than me.
down,
Thank
so I don't
you.
know.
I got
She's
it
beating
in
the
6.
host.
Focus up.
What's your upload?
You
Just curious.
bastards! Huh?
Did you ever find out?
Go fuck you.
Crazy
My
motherfucker.
download is 500. I don't
Crazy
know what my
motherfucker.
upload is.
Did it,
Ah.
did it, everyone
You know you just have to do speedtest.net, right? To find out.
Yeah, but it's.
I'm gonna speed test after this.
I think I've asked you like 500 times.
Yeah, you're speeding all the way.
Just shy of a big down and
I'm a
Oh,
total
shot.
of 14 seconds. guys.
600 up.
I jumped
Something
up
like
all
that.
up this
Ah!
4 seconds, Nathan's
Get
fucking
it in,
top time.
guys. Let's go. Fast, fast, fast. Woo!
I think my problem is I click before I should click, and then it messes me
I
up.
got pie.
Oh,
Yeah.
don't forget
No, I'm
S.
happy.
S is the
That's
magic
always
key
taking
to
you
stop
6
your ball
seconds.
from rolling, guys. You got brakes. Oh my god, I so forgot about the brakes.
No.
No, I
That's how
don't.
I got
Yeah,
pie.
I don't
you
use
need
my
to
brakes. I just go for it.
Here, go
Guys,
hard or
go
go home.
for it.
I mean, that's my motto.
I forgot about
5
brakes.
Ds. Duck, dive, dip, dive, and dodge.
Yeah, you said die twice. Yeah, you're gonna die twice. Oh my fucking.
Lady, you got a hole in
Oh,
one.
asshole.
I can't see the ground.
I didn't get a hole in one.
You're an
but-
asshole.
There was a glitch. I
Hole
couldn't
in
see
ones
anything.
don't matter on this one.
No.
It's only the
Hacks.
time.
That one-
Only the time,
that one
folks.
is
All
gonna
that
catch
matters is the
you gotta
time.
catch
I
one.
take
Let's
my
go.
time, apparently.
Oh, I missed a.
Hole
Chat.
5.
Oh no, that's the old one. Never
Oh,
mind.
I will
I
say
just
this is
wanna
like
get
the
it in
fastest
first.
round of golf that anybody plays. It's because this thing is like,
Get the fuck in
go
that hole.
fast.
Yeah.
I
Ah!
was so close, but I
I'm
accidentally.
rid dropping
Let
it.
you be
Didn't
lady.
seconds.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, no way. I can't be last. I can't be last now.
Let's say
Wow.
Nate already had kids. He doesn't have to go
Yeah.
fast
It's
anymore.
not the worst thing coming last, guys. You know, just saying.
You're caring for the community,
It
now.
all depends on the point of view.
What?
Huh?
Nothing. Drugs.
What are you talking about?
2.5 feet. 2.5 feet.
You
No,
fucker.
Michigan. No.
Drugs.
I don't have to turn on that reference too for the censored bar.
Dang
You
it,
gotta
I'll
click
knock
on
you
all the
over to
things.
fucking place.
You gotta click on drug references now and censor that
Oh, I
because
have very
Michigan
good
goes
friends
drugs.
That
Cyborg,
was the
2.5
first time I
feet.
ever made it over the hump without getting in the river,
Cyborg,
and y'all
2.5.
knocked me all about
You always have to go over my humps. My
my
Cyborg,
humps. My
My
lovely,
hubs, my hubs, my
Michigan
lovely
ass.
lady
I
hubs.
didn't know you had lady lumps.
2.5.
Apparently he
Yeah.
does.
Wow.
We need to have a conversation later, privately, because I need to see this. I'm just kidding.
Well, I'll do it right
I
now.
don't wanna see it.
My lovely Michigan homes. Check them out.
Check it out.
I have no desire to
Well,
see
we don't have mountains in Michigan.
You don't want to see his lady lumps?
No, thank
You
you.
better see my lady
What?
lumps.
Luscious lady lump.
I mean,
Fucked it.
might be competition.
Fuck.
Pokecatch, guys! Pokemon, Pokecatch.
Bro, that's rude. I know mine are nice, but
Oh.
Yeah,
I didn't know Splits had them either.
Yeah, he does too.
oh,
We
please.
run-
Oh.
No, he's got moves.
Cameras and everything.
He's got moves.
Falling down the
Really?
I don't know. We had
Yeah, man boobs.
we're
So I don't get to
Rangers
see
where we
those. I don't have permission.
Oh fuck, here we go. Right. Buckle up.
She's basically asking for the rest of chat. Oh, y'all messed me up. What?
Someone fucking touch me.
Somebody touched me too.
Who fucking touched me?
Oh, now I'm angry.
What's break?
All the touches.
Spacebar.
S.
Cheers.
Oh,
I
no,
S
yeah,
is breaks.
Because I just go
Dang
straight in.
it.
I was
I
pushing
got
forward
flung
while
everywhere,
I'm
but where I was trying to go. Now I'm in ninth? What? After one hole?
fucking hey.
Oh,
No,
okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe it wasn't your day. I don't.
I mean, I've been dropping points because I fucking.
You been
like,
dropping?
been on the end. What
Dropping
is-
them
get-
points.
Drop it like
Drop
it's
on-
hot.
Stuff.
Well,
Yeah.
Oh god, why did that even happen?
470.
Mono
Oh.
keep hitting me, so I couldn't get in fast
It was just love taps, man. Just love taps.
enough.
yeah,
But
who
you
doesn't
can't
want
Just
to-
share the love.
Tap it
Who
in, Happy.
doesn't-
Just tap it
who
in.
doesn't-
I'm trying to get in.
tap,
I got blocked, man. I got
Dude, 470 on that? Like, I feel like a rock star. Damn.
Who doesn't love a good love tap?
Just tap a room.
You lady really can find the hole very quickly.
Where's the hole?
You-
Off to the
Pay
right.
attention.
Oh, I see. Oh.
She's a
What the
pro.
hell?
Wait, what?
Lady is
That
really
didn't go
close.
any way that I thought it would, but okay.
Lady
Wait.
are-
Also, don't forget, R resets your ball if you need to reset really quickly to go back to the beginning.
Not that it does any good in this game mode.
Ladies
They
have
did,
been,
it just helped me.
Reading the hockey.
Because I went off into the woods rolling infinitely and I hit R real quick to reset.
Rolling.
So it
What?
can help you.
Too much.
Lady, I'm gonna say that you're beating me because you're soberer than I am.
Sure, we can go with that.
What's sober? Is that
Sure.
Whoa! Jesus.
Oh my god.
Nice humans.
No! Stop
man, I missed
hitting me!
I still made it
To
in
be
first.
fair,
I still made it in right in front of you.
It's funny.
Stop hitting me!
This is the easy level.
But
bro.
yes, welcome to Stream Chat. I hope you're enjoying all these shenanigans. It's a good time. Just
It took
say.
me 25 seconds. To...
Wait till we get to the candy in the space level.
Oh yeah, Candyland.
How are you getting these fucking hole-in-ones?
At least it'll be over quickly, Splits.
They're not hole in
She
one.
can fight.
They're just getting in quick.
She can fight in the hole.
Woo!
In one go.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck. I
Apparently.
forgot to go.
Yo.
Oh, what?
Oh, what? Someone walked
Lady!
No!
She's so
I've never
freaking
done that on
fast.
purpose.
I
know,
literally
you
hit
haven't.
She needs a
as I was going into
nickname.
the hole and
I
kicked it
know.
out.
She needs a nickname for Speed Golf, like Fast
like,
Hands
"It's my
Lady
hole,
or
Mom."
something. I don't know.
Laser lady.
No, she's just
Cheater.
lady.
Cheater.
Let's do some thinking on that, Mono.
Kill me,
please.
maybe it's
No. It's gotta be
Getting
good.
crazy.
It's gotta be good so we can quote it.
The moon must be in the world.
Blazing lady.
Cheating with Cheaterton.
I'm gonna get him first.
Cheater
No,
too.
lady's beating me.
Woo!
Lady,
You guys are
Sounds like a
all
good
in
I
time.
just know how to use brakes.
I don't,
Same.
and I don't have brakes.
What, bitch?
I do have brakes.
I can get
Couldn't get through the damn tube because there was like 5 of you in front of me.
Oh, y'all have escaped. Nobody caught it. Dang dragonfly.
I can be brown, I can be blue, I can be brown, sky, I can be
Oh, come on.
Like biting somebody.
I better walk out.
Pyong. Oh yeah.
Whoa, whoa.
Whoa, someone
Hey,
hit
how'd
me.
you do
Thank you.
I hate
Oh,
the
yeah.
game.
that, lady?
Fuck.
Holy cow!
Someone hit me in space.
Wait, where are we?
I'm gonna bite somebody for this.
Wait, where am I
You're gonna
going?
bite
What the
somebody.
shit? I went to the
Poor good
wrong
old
hole.
Evie. I bit Evie. Poor Instant Evie.
If you fully eat it at the
funny?
right target, you'll be
Dude,
good.
I didn't even get
I'm gonna
it's
boop.
off course. It's just like, oh, you're fine. You're fine.
Nico.
You're fine. You're fine.
That's
Dude,
fine.
I was on the wrong course.
Well, you're trying to go ahead.
Ship.
Speed.
Who am I gonna ship with? Ship with myself. That sounds about right.
Hey,
So are you kimono, cat, KimonoKat?
Yeah, cat.
Mono,
Like
mono,
Kit
mono,
Kat, but it's cat.
no,
Why the fuck did that just happen? What was that?
You saved me from myself.
Yeah, see,
You
it just
jump out of
happens,
the
it
hole,
just
then?
happens.
It's Mr.
I
Cat.
don't think it is. I don't.
Or
Not misfits.
Kimono Splits.
It's
That sounds
Mrs.
like I
Mono
run.
Splits. I don't know, whatever. Who
That
cares?
sounds like I'm running somewhere. I
What
split.
did I just do?
Oh,
Well, that's what I get for experimenting.
Oh, still
Oh,
didn't even make
no!
it over the bullshit.
It was the wrong key. I meant to hit the S key and I hit the W key and then I ran into
You
Wiggles.
knocked me.
I know, because I hit the
Oh,
W
damn it.
key instead of the S key. My fingers
no,
lost
I'm so
track of
screwed.
where they
I'm
were.
so screwed. I'm so screwed. Oh no.
I need to
This
get
is
bad.
bad.
Don't go down the hole, guys.
This-
Wrong hole,
Elevator,
Cider
Elevator
and
goes down.
Racing Tank
My brain
and
don't work.
R press, R press,
I
R
went
press.
down the hole.
everybody going down the wrong hole. Splint.
Oh,
That's
no.
what she said.
I kind of jumped over the hole.
There's no wrong hole. You still haven't learned yet.
Doesn't smell.
I'm trying to
It's just
be
I got
fair
clues.
as possible.
Clues?
Nice.
Clues?
Oh,
Clues?
almost. You
There's
almost
a
had a good
comedian.
save.
There's a comedian I like, and his joke was,
Uh-huh.
guys really got to be gay, you know, because women they have assholes too.
Wow. Actually, you know, that's kind of true. It's like, dude,
Kinda true.
you know.
You know, it
Hold
just
on,
proves
I
the point
never,
that,
like-
you know, it's not a choice.
Okay, like,
We're
I'm
not
not
gonna
saying
get into
anything
that.
negative about
Hold on,
anybody, but,
hold on.
like, that's kind of true.
It is true. They obviously are gay, you know, like, because women, they're assholes too. Simple as that, you know. It's not a choice. It's just like. You know,
Like, no, I particularly like male asshole.
I've never
Okay.
heard that.
it's like
I knew it.
like
I don't know. Maybe it's
Oh, you. Oh no,
maybe
I'm
it's
an
a.
idiot.
I don't know how we're gonna go there.
got so
I
many
started
names
to
on
say
my
things,
thing.
incriminating things that I'm not even going
I
to
know,
now.
I already
because
said it.
stop.
You can quote me. All right, fine. It's fine.
like,
I've already
prefer
said
to
it.
take from a certain restaurant because you know.
No, dude, hey, actually, I think we should change the subject right now. This is a live.
My bad.
I was just-
It's nothing worse than they've ever heard before.
Is this live?
Why?
It is.
I thought it said live.
I mean,
My bad.
Perhaps sometimes,
Yeah,
others maybe not. Oh, I'm still there.
It's
That's
all
nice.
good.
Wow, good for me.
it's all in love and curiosity.
This is where I'm gonna lose it all.
Love and curiosity.
Oh, you
Oh, you
motherfucker for
bastard.
knocking me out.
You bastard! Hey, we're live. Come on. There could be some bastards. here.
Oh my gosh.
We're live.
It is
Oh,
censored.
man.
It is 18 plus, guys. It is
Yo,
18
yo.
plus.
What I
Should
said
be
was not
30
that
or
bad.
As bad as
I could have said some foul stuff.
We just
but I
we
didn't.
just need to mark all the boxes, you know.
Oh,
Except
no.
for
Hey, look.
Except for
I make fun of
nudity.
everybody
Lesbian.
equally. Just so you
Let's
know.
be honest.
Huh?
Let's be honest.
If you ever hear a joke from me and you disagree with it, understand that I make fun of everybody equally.
Did
Right.
you just say lesbian? Lesbian, not lesbianis?
Well, I said that, which is, let's be honest. If you can tolerate my shit, anyone's
We got one
welcome
more
in it.
hole and I can get a beer. That's one tonight.
I say so
Mm.
much profanity
I was
that it's
gonna
not
get-
really-
One more hole.
Is Cat gonna
Like,
get
is this- He
69?
wants to see the outcome of this hole for his beer.
Oh, I'm so dead.
No, because it's
No pressure. No pressure
Oh
at
my
all.
god, who knocked me?
Um,
Like, I didn't even hit the freaking thing.
Well, go talk to your congressman.
No. Oh, you hit 69! Oh, you dang
You
log!
got it in 11 seconds, buddy.
Oh yeah, the buzzsaw.
I'm gonna get
Oh,
down and then I get hit, so I'm gonna get like 70.
Sorry.
I'm
Do not
71.
complain, I
I'm
hope you
so
all
mad. I wanted 69. I had lined up that if I could have got in the hole three times, I would have got 69.
You.
Every
Yeah, I
fucking
did.
time.
There we go.
I totally did.
I didn't
Finally
like
got it.
I diddly diddly do, diddly diddly
Too
do.
busy getting fucked.
Absolutely. Well done.
Dude, you gotta jump.
I'm glad
You
one of
can't
us
do- this
is.
This don't work. You gotta
It's
jump.
Croft want to make
And
you
if you do,
jump.
you gotta hit it like to the
Jump.
right. You gotta hit it like to the right.
No,
No, you gotta jump
on
across to the right.
Once you hit the thing,
Aim at the
jump
flag
when
and
you
jump.
hit the thing.
You know what, guys? You can go
Jump when you hit the
sing,
belt.
Just go fuck off. I'm gonna
No,
go
hit
that
the
way.
belt.
Go, 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 go. Now
Actually,
jump, 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 jump. Jump.
Nice.
There you go.
And now you can. Oh, you should have taken your time. Now
Oh.
you're gonna get hit. Jump, jump.
Down. Oh wow.
Fucking
Skibbity doo dah.
upright.
Skibbity
Skibbity
doo.
Yeah, figuring a way out from
There
here
you
to
go.
do.
Holy
It's
cow.
way
Behind the
fun.
logs.
Good moves. Good moves. Oh,
Well done. I'm fucking. so
My
at this.
sister-in-law has a shiny Genesect.
I hate this. I like here, Michigan.
Oh no! Now we're watching
Low
you.
on
He
time.
who
Go, go,
shiny
go, go,
camera
go.
walks.
there you
I
go.
wasn't
Oh,
even
that's pretty
there.
nice. That's
Now
pretty
you're
nice.
safe.
There you
I
go.
was getting
I
a
am
beer.
so over that.
Hurry,
last
Michigan.
Michigan.
Hey.
Get in the hole.
I was
you had to do
getting a
was hit
beer.
I can go from like a fucking like a.
See where your priorities are. Just kidding.
Time marching on.
Look at that.
I jumped from
No,
last base.
everybody's judging
You
me
know
how
what's
to get in the
funny is
hole. I'm like,
actually
fuck it.
don't-
I'm gonna get in
Nobody's
the hole.
judging you. We're just. It's all love.
I
Nobody's judging you. We
Clear
promise.
list of
You're
Oh,
good.
I'm not a pack.
ranked though, like no ties in the end.
Oh,
sort it
see,
out.
I got
The next
70. I was so
match,
close to
one of my
69.
kids wake up.
Rain, how the
I-
did you get
Yeah.
34?
That's Rain. That is fucking outrageous. Like seriously.
What the
You have
hell?
a problem, girl.
I think she plays golf
Did you-
every
did
single
you
day
practice
without
shit
me.
before, like,
She
No,
probably
no,
does.
You know I don't.
It's her second
oh,
job.
gotta get my daily
Just saying,
game of golf
second
in.
job.
Do, do, do.
Yes, she practices all the moves for speed golf.
That's
Uh,
in your head.
Okay, guys, take a quick break if you need to. We're gonna do a slow
I literally did
normal
during the game.
version of Candyland before we go into the fast
just give him a
Candyland.
5.
Just give me like a
No, the
500.
kid. Just give like the kid like a
Yeah, I'll be
5.
back.
See, how do I
No,
do the
it's
flag
okay.
thing? I don't even
It's 2
see
in the
that.
fucking morning, Joe.
It was a
2 in the
joke.
morning. My kids are gonna
Okay.
wake up and like
Flag
at the
indicator.
best,
There we go.
best
Hold
case
on, you think
scenario.
that was logical? First of all, and
It's 2 in
second
the
of all,
morning right now.
how would
Best
you
case
give?
scenario? I'll have 5 hours sleep if I go to sleep right this second.
I'll be honest with you, bro.
Ooh.
There. I turned on the
I
flag
guess I should
indicator.
have another
Nah.
soda.
Anyways, I'm gonna get
Just
unless.
4.5 at most.
I'm
My kids are
sure
definitely
if
waking
you
up.
We're good. I
I'm
just made the
pretty
noise
sure.
I was
because
just
I
making
have
a
a
joke,
candle sitting
like
on my
a
desk.
$5 bill.
Wow.
I don't have a $5 bill.
I ran up into my desk.
I'm stand up.
Just be quiet and I've got you turned way up.
Why would we want a $2 bill when we could just do 2
What are you
ones?
saying, Nathan?
Don't make it a logical thing. This is
The
very
$2
simple.
bills are cool.
They are
I
cool.
mean, anyways,
Like,
kimono,
incredibly
my
rare.
hat matches your shirt.
It's like a you problem.
Yeah, it does. We matched. Cool
It
beans.
is a me problem. You're
And then
right.
after that, what I said was,
I got 2 of these
keep
hats
your
because
voice
one
down,
was
because
came from the
obviously
aliens.
yeah, then obviously they're not likely.
You're.
I'm in a completely different building from them.
I'm gonna
Oh,
give you a
true.
billion.
Yeah, true.
not
But
really
it,
like
Rare as
it,
a
echoes
penny from
up
the
to your,
1800s.
it echoes up to your bathroom.
They can't hear anything from where I am.
You know.
No. Just separate.
Mono,
by
I
like
hope
2
you
years
deafened
of
us.
wall.
No, not at all. Never. All the incriminating evidence.
Never. All right, cool. I figured as much.
Onward to the peppermint forwards.
I
Are you
didn't even know what
jealous
you
that I'm
said, and I
holding
had
the
you
cat
in
like a
there.
baby?
That's why I
Yes.
didn't say shit.
I miss my old cat. She can
Silence. A moment of silence.
That's my
A moment of
kitty.
silence.
Anyways, this shirt
Um,
is on. It's not on
Lady.
sale, but I'm gonna make.
This
sure
shirt
it's
is on fire.
Alright, let's push
Lady.
play. We're all here. My kids are gonna wake up. Let's push.
Is that
Let's go.
another-
All right.
Hey, bye.
Sorry.
Peppermint forwards.
Okay, 1 second.
Here we go.
Can we hold 1
What?
second?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
no,
yeah.
we can't.
No,
It's
sorry,
too
right
late.
here.
Run.
Sorry.
It's not
This
speed
is
golf,
speed.
so if you need to step away, you got some time.
It's not.
What do you need?
It's not speed this round. This is the
Is that
warm-up
a
round
new
for
title?
speed.
No.
Oh,
That's
I don't even
fuck.
know where the hole
This
is.
is
Where's the
warm-up
hole?
round to make sure you can familiarize yourself with all the
Ah,
holes, and then we go to
press
speed.
the brakes
Been
that
that
don't work on
tiny.
this level.
Well, that's
I
what
know,
people
it
say.
sucks.
Oh man, I
It's
jumped
in
way
the
over.
book.
Okay, I
Oh,
know
we're
where it is.
standing, yes.
Dalton won't let me have another cat.
Standing, Mono.
Honestly, I like one cat, and that's about
One
it.
cat.
actually, this is like my worst level ever.
Yeah, but I've
Somehow I
wanted
got across
kitten
it. I don't
before
know what
she
happened.
goes,
fucking.
and he won't let me.
No, I love my
And when I
cat.
stand,
just
you
have
get to
give
see
her
Nessie.
some-
I'm gonna retire out of this.
That might be
Nessie,
stressful.
yeah, you can retire real quick and join
You're
back
allowed
No,
if you want to go get a
actually,
drink
she
or
loves
something.
kittens.
You're allowed
No,
to
I
do
got-
whatever the hell you want.
Check
She
real
is
quick.
very
I'll
much
be
a
right
mama cat.
Then I don't see a problem with it as long as
See,
it's not a
see,
top.
Nessie's back there behind the dream
It's
sign.
actually not a big deal if it's
Mhm.
a tom because
Anyways.
Puddle, if as long as the baby.
Dream, she
Wow,
really
Puddles.
appreciates you. She got. Your,
Oh my god!
There's only
There's a
one.
raid!
There's only one though.
Welcome, Raiders!
You're gonna get in his head.
Welcome to the
Raiders?
ring!
Who's raiding?
It's a Jade raid, guys!
Jade,
Welcome, 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 welcome!
look, found her out.
I
Welcome,
got
Raiders!
my
Welcome to
life.
Friday Night Shenanigans! We're playing some golf with
It
friends
is, yeah.
and causing lots of
Reading the
trouble.
right thing.
And I'm feeling epically, and I'm trying to hit the S key again because of speed
Enter
golf.
green stripe.
Hi,
No way, you
lovely.
beat me.
I'm
How the
doing
fuck
great.
you
I
beat
hope
me,
you're doing
Mono? You were right
awesome.
next to me
It's
the
so
whole
good to see you. I hope you had a good stream. Thanks for that hype, guys.
You can get in the whole
Ranger
fish.
X, welcome, 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 guys.
Literally, like Mona was right next to me the whole time, and then. just
Yeah,
ignored
sorry.
me.
I
She's
didn't
better
read
at getting in the hole than me.
tools.com because I
Yeah,
didn't trust it to be
I didn't do
accurate.
anything. I didn't do
Oh,
anything.
I'm just gonna blame it on like Clarissa. Remember watching
But welcome for the
Clarissa
raid. Welcome,
explains it
welcome,
all.
welcome.
Hell yeah, I remember that.
How was Genshin?
She told me everything I ever knew.
Through walls and shit.
Genshin was great, I bet, as always.
Oh, Clarissa,
I
she
love
was
it.
like using my PC the other day.
I'm not
Fucking
I missed-
full on, like fucking ESP and
No,
shit
no,
like that.
you
and
didn't
just-
say
Why does
Pokey
so
Cat.
point?
She didn't tell me it was a ghost type.
Zero.
Oh yeah, it's a ghosty ghost. The ghosty Pokemon.
Yeah,
Oh,
gee,
no,
thank
it's
you
up over.
after you catch it.
After yourself.
I'm sorry. I don't know. I'm just doing things and stuff, and trying to like oh, thanks for that hit.
Yeah,
How many times because
Gotta be a little closer there, dude.
Bogey. Double bogey.
I could have been
Lucky
there.
on,
I could have been in there.
you are lucky on fire today. That's so good.
Oh, hell yeah.
Did you get all the great pulls today? Sounds like it. Sounds like it. I gotta catch another one of your Genshin streams. Ah, and my favorite emote that you have, the Hello Kitty emote. I love it, love it, love it. I need it. I was like thinking, do I have Hello Kitty in this room? I don't think I do at this minute. I got Kuromi. I got my Kuromi pen here. So yeah, a little Kuromi pen. It's so cute. Oh, the newest thing I got, it's not Hello Kitty at all, but it is a kitty cat. And it's a little speaker, and I'm just loving it. It's this little cute cat speaker. It's actually a speaker, so that I can hear like from my PC when I don't want to have an earbud in. It's so cute. Well, many good ones on my viewer's account. That's awesome. So you were good luck for your viewer. I love Kurumi. Kurumi's so cute. And then my favorite Pokemon, of course, is Skitty. So I have my little Skitty pen. And then I have my Gengar pin. Skitty's just a topper. But then I have like an Eevee topper too. I love my Pokemon. Pusheen! I do have some Pusheen in the other room. I don't have any Pusheen right here, but I do have some in the other room. I love Pusheen. Pusheen is so cute. I have one with a cookie, and I have a couple of them actually, the plushies. I just love them. They're so cute. Oh, oh, oh. I'm getting all the notifications. Is it rain? Oh my gosh. She's sending me notifications. She's like, where'd you go? Just kidding. The HL collab is so cute, right? I love it, love it, love it. Okay, girlie, let you go. I'm gonna eat dinner. Happy Friday! Thank you so much again for that raid. Welcome everybody from Jade's stream. I am a variety streamer. I do community night games on Fridays. I'll be getting back to my art stream soon where I paint Pokemon. And Stardew Valley is my all-time fave. And I also love Genshin. But I'm not a pro like Jade. Jade's the pro. Jade's the pro. I'll catch you guys later. Nico, Nico, Nico. Let's see. Let me grab my community. Who's talking here?
Yeah, bogey.
Oh, bogey.
Even when you go one over. Yeah, sure, that's a bogey.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
not jumping high enough here.
It's the same word.
Yeah.
No, a booger is
No,
what
for
you
us,
take
a
out of your
bogey
nose.
is like
Yeah,
an enemy
Boogeyman, the
aircraft.
boogeyman.
So we
Rain
call
and
it a
that,
bogey. Like,
Rain, that
see,
cute
whenever
little
we're
bat
putting
you
it
sent me
on,
is
it's
adorable.
called bogey.
It's a bogey, not a booger.
Yeah, but in golf it's called a bogey, but the
Yeah.
stuff up your nose is called a booger, right?
Yeah.
But here,
Yes.
where the language originated from, just saying, they're
Oh,
both
no, hold on. Let me get my
Yeah,
English.
Yeah,
from
just
they're
saying.
just the same word. It's bogey and the bogey. It's the bogey.
See,
Live and live.
let's go.
If you
Live
watch
and
like,
live.
Tiger Woods or whatever the
Boogeyman,
fuck
So
Boogeyman.
close.
stuff
Not
English
enough
is
heat.
horrible
Not
language
sure
because
if
it's
it's
mixed up with so
enough
many
heat.
freaking
all
languages.
bogeys. It's just all
I'm not
bogeys.
sure if it's the same source word.
Nathan, I'll be honest with you, bro. I've fought this for so many years, and
give
a
up.
sidewalk
We
is
win
still
the
Oh,
a
war.
does it make you feel
Just
good?
give up.
Does it?
We're
Do
a
you get a
bigger
little bit
country
of?
with bigger voices.
A sidewalk is still
Okay.
a sidewalk, even
No,
though
there's
we
Alright,
no
here
doubt.
we
It's
go.
a Michael
I'm
McIntyre
not
thing.
gonna go
It's a
there.
Michael McIntyre thing. The joke is
I
Americans
hit
have to
the wrong
simplify
button
things.
and
It's not
messed
just
it
like-
Yeah,
all
I've
up.
seen that.
It's a
Hold on.
sidewalk.
I
because
messed
you
it
walk
all
on
up.
the side.
You have to walk
You know.
inside.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyways,
Oh
I
gosh.
forgot.
We're
Oh,
English-
why did I go too
English.
far?
It's a very new.
I went
No, it's
too
just right in
far,
front of me.
and I got so near.
But
I wanted
And
to
it
end as a
doesn't really
goal.
matter.
It doesn't even
Oh.
matter because
in the end,
It doesn't matter. I'm just gonna sit here and stare at the phone and not the game. So yeah. I blame the wine.
How am I still losing this? This is not even.
Okay, it's time to sit back down.
I need a stand-up desk or a stand-up couch.
It's so nice. I love it. I have one at work too, but it's like just a. At work, it's just a desk riser though, so I gotta like squeeze a thing and pull it up. So it's not quite as fancy.
No, it's smart. You
But I like
the blood
this.
going through your
You want
body.
a desk riser because you want to squeeze a thing and rise it up.
You want to squeeze the thing and rise it up. I have no idea what you're talking about.
I wasn't even thinking that way. Which is
Okay. We know what Dreams is thinking about.
Dang it! I should have been over there.
I didn't even catch that because I wasn't. I was just listening.
Her reason for a different desk was because she wants to squeeze a thing and make it rise up. So
No, I like this desk better. I just push a button and it rises up.
Yeah, there's nothing squeezing about it.
You want to know
Pushing
where
all
my
my
brother is right now, and
buttons.
he didn't bother to tell me.
You know what's funny? That's the
Who? What? Where?
He doesn't drink, does he? I know.
Britney Spears.
You have no idea.
Who did what?
My
Did
brother's
what?
watching Dropkick Murphys right now,
Oh.
What?
I'm jealous.
and I'm pissed.
Aiden, how are
Why?
you fucking missing
The last time I saw them
I'm just,
was St.
was
Patty's
DC.
Day.
Yeah, I need to go that way.
4 years ago, St. Patty's Day. They were down here
Why
in
weren't they
DC.
there when
It was
we were
awesome.
I want to see them so bad. They're so cool.
Like bot
Go
tricks.
to Boston.
Who are we
On
gonna
St.
marry?
Patty's Day. That's how you see
Not
them.
Jade. She's too beautiful.
Cyborg, get up the hill. Give it a little more.
Technically, they're gonna be.
I'm already in the hole. I'm
Orlando
going to the
on
bathroom.
Of March.
But I
Would
can't
you be
afford
available?
Let's go.
Not to work.
Are you asking me out,
On the
mate?
21st of March.
Who's asking who out?
Friday.
Could always
Me?
have him bring you a CD. for
Say
the
it again.
night bill.
My
If the
brother lives in
opportunity
Ohio.
arose on the 21st, 22nd, and obviously the 23rd because you were travelling home
There's always the
of
mail.
March, would you be available or would you be working?
21st, 22nd, 23rd of March.
Potentially.
Um,
That's not just
I
potential.
barely made it in. I'm sorry, guys.
You're alright.
What? I'm surprised you're not like a zero like Wiggles winning there. Holy cow.
I'll be honest with you, I don't think so.
Well, he's a cheater.
But I'll check
Cheater,
because
cheater.
I worked
He's from
on the
Wisconsin.
What the fuck is the hole in this one? I don't understand it. What?
He's a cheesehead.
fucking.
Did you get
Cheesehead
caught out
from
not
Wisconsin?
knowing where the hole is?
Yeah, it's called a cheesehead.
I like cheese.
I'm first
Pardon me,
in.
Kimono?
and
I love
like
cheese.
it.
I like tea.
Mate,
I eat about a pound a day.
Jumps too far and I can't come back.
Gromit would love it too.
I don't know why that's
No,
the
Rain
no.
kissed
Too
me.
far, and
Don't
I
kiss my
can't
ball.
come back. I'm
You
not.
can touch my ball. I'm telling
No,
Mom.
I try to get out as fast as possible.
Who touching me now?
Where's the hole in this
The
one?
hole. Where's the
Don't
hole?
touch me there.
Between
Don't
two
touch me
yellow
there.
stones.
You touch me
no-no
there, but
No,
not
no
there.
square.
That's my no-no
I'm
square.
shooting away word to a
No,
different
no,
My
no,
no-no square.
no.
No, 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 no.
That's my no-no
Isn't
square.
that
Nathan, give me a minute.
Parks
I'll
and
find out
Recs?
that date.
I don't
my
know.
no-no
No,
square?
Yeah.
no, no.
Okay, I'm not
I've
doing
heard
this
it
one.
multiple times, so
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
go
sure where it came from
Came
originally.
about before that.
I don't know either. Who am I supposed to be watching
Don't
at this
touch me.
point?
Isn't that
That's my
no,
no-no
no,
square.
no. Fuck. Yeah. I kind of know it.
You're trying to mix a different song with it, and it sounds pretty cool. Michigan.
Right? Alright, I'm a DJ. Yay.
Probably. Yeah, I'm probably mixing.
Yeah, but I like it. If you can figure it out.
No.
Come on, please.
Sometimes I like it.
I like
This
it.
isn't
I
happening.
love it. I want some more.
I want
of
some more.
Very gently go on around.
it. Woo!
Jump!
Just
With my gingies.
How am I not getting in the fucking same track here? I don't understand. How are you guys doing this?
You see that peppermint stick there? Flag it beyond it.
if you're ever curious where you need to go, you can always hit the C and
I
then
did
the
it, I did that. I
space bar.
Get
Yeah,
there.
there you go.
He's
You
on
do
his
that
way
in real
in.
life?
There you go.
I
He
mean,
found his
Perfect.
own.
we all know
I think
where
you
to
took
go,
the
it's
long
just
way.
getting there's the difficulty.
It's getting there. It's
True.
getting there.
I don't have to hit C, F4, 2.
Scaramouche.
Hit the Jolly Rancher full blast. That's what Mini Rain says. And then you'll slide down the fudge slide right into the
did
hole.
not slide down.
I never go
slide
down.
this time.
I go
Set it
I'll
up.
tell you, the fudge slide is the best
I was
slide.
so close to
No, I go down the proper
Slide
way.
is great.
I go down the
I think it's a matter of opinion.
That button does not
I'm
work.
just
I don't
saying,
go
I
through
always
the-
get first place when I take
I
fudge
don't go
slide.
through the fudge. No.
You always get first place when you
That
take
is
fudge
what
slide.
is fucking broken on my keyboard, I'm sure.
I do. You watch,
Nice.
I'll show up first in the linking for this, but not for the
Oh,
whole
we get
round,
to watch?
obviously.
Down, guys.
You
Stuck
get
in
to
the
watch
fudge
me
slide.
flow into the, no, not
I didn't
really.
make it up the hill well at all.
Oh.
I would like to ask how Wiggles has
Bitch.
0 for score.
Oh, it's over there. It's like
Because
one of
I
these
I
fucking
retired and
jumpy
the computer
bitches.
played my game.
Oh.
Well, it's
Not happening.
because
Oh my
Yeah.
god, I actually got in. That's nice.
That is a good
we felt
question.
bad for him. that we
Usually
gave
they
him
just
zero.
vanish. They don't stay at 0.
Yeah.
Hey, I did
No,
it.
because we felt
Yeah.
bad for him.
That's so weird. He's still on there even though he's gone.
What one?
So he's gonna like
I know
literally
he's being-
win
it's
somehow.
Like, oh, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. It's like,
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah,
he's
so he's
zero.
gonna win.
Place
Not-
winner.
Her.
Dude, you're so good
Yeah,
that
watch
you don't
all.
even have to play.
Welcome, lovely Peach. Wiggles definitely has rigged this
I have to
game.
fight for my right to
Mark,
You're
represent
special?
myself.
No, you are.
I'm special.
You're special.
March
Mama,
24th,
mama,
I'm
mama.
working.
Don't make
Got
me
some
I
for
went,
Tay.
I went somewhere.
I'm off.
Special.
At least you
You're
made
so
I'm going to talk
very
right into it.
special.
It's free real estate.
Cause I'm a freak. What?
I want to finish that. but-
Yee.
Oh, I didn't know I was a
Mama
fucking
says
gap
hello,
there.
all. Thanks
Alright,
for the heart.
first of all, why am I in first
Thank you.
person? There we go. That makes more
Spooky.
sense.
Honestly,
Fucking
I live life in third person.
S does not work.
Because we're not doing speed.
We're not
golf.
doing speed golf. S only
Oh,
works in
did-
speed
did
golf.
you think Zarkovich
I'll
set
You
do
fell for
free?
the S key thing. It's you get
56
so
stroke.
it needs to be all the time. S key needs to be all the
Finally
time.
made it
I'm
across.
sorry.
Yeah, when I usually play golf, I don't usually have speed. Yeah, so.
It needs to be an
Thanks,
option
Joe.
I can turn on and off.
It's
for my
actually
team.
3, but you know,
3 holes.
If you
don't
want
ask me about it. I don't want to talk.
No.
I don't want to talk about it, God.
It has to be.
I don't
What was
want to
this
talk
one?
about it.
20
I
seconds.
don't remember.
Just barely
for it.
over 3.
I'm gonna start.
Three.
Barely
Yes.
over 3, and
Not
you will
quite.
swoosh just
I
like
just
I
did a
did.
hole in one. They even realised I misclicked.
I swished.
Just barely
Stop.
over
Catch.
Totally.
Rain,
Oh my
Pokemon,
God, you weren't wrong.
Pokecatch.
You weren't wrong.
There's some big
Holy
music
cow.
being
We swooshed
spooky.
right in.
Is what I mean.
Anyways,
Lady, I was
Ooh,
regular.
background
lady, I
music
was
is.
regular.
Oh, it must have been my
I
Spotify
don't think you
music.
get in that hole that quick. I don't.
I did a
Very
hole in one
carefully.
and I misclicked it. That's just, you know.
Is that how it works?
Well,
Because
down,
maybe I
down.
need to misclick
Oh,
it.
you just
I don't know.
misclicked your hole in one?
It's
Is that
kinda
how
hard
it
to
works?
hear.
Yeah,
Everywhere.
maybe that's how it works. I
Everything.
don't know. That's why I'm
Oh,
asking Nate.
Okay, first
That's
of
what
all,
I'm
you have to
asking.
open the beer before you can drink it.
That
Is that
helps.
how it works too? I don't know.
I don't know, maybe.
Sometimes it does.
You'd have to
Let's
go in
see if I
and
can
check
hear
that.
it.
Didn't. It's just
Try
it
3
depends.
from
I'm
here.
not gonna tell you what it's for.
Yeah, I'm gonna call in like 3 government agencies to tell me whether or not I got that one right.
What?
Well,
Hello? Opening of
This
cans
sucks.
department?
There you go, bro. Sent to you.
Oof. Oof.
What's this for? What is this?
You were right there.
The dates
How are you,
made available.
Momo? You resting and relaxing, I hope.
Alright, so from there, Joe.
I know. Hold on.
What the fuck is this shit?
Alright,
You act like I
hold on.
can't.
Resting and relaxing. Oh, I caught the
fine,
Pokemon
like,
and so
you
did
can
Momo.
Fucking brownie it out then.
There you go, Michigan. There you go. That's how I do.
I had to
That's how I
quiet
stuff.
the playful.
He's just like, shut the fuck up, I can do it.
My
You can do
mama
it.
said I could
You
do
want
it.
me to make myself available for March the 24th?
I'm gonna make
Yeah.
you available.
So
Oh,
what I've
shit.
done is use my calendar.
Wait, I've played this course before. Did
Ooh,
they change
ready.
it?
Yes, was
Did they
fun.
change-
Almost ready for bed, but wanted to
I
say
think they
hi.
changed this course.
But I do need to get
I'm
some
already in
sleep.
the hole,
Good
guys.
night,
Move on,
KimonoKat and
touch
chat
you
loves.
No,
Enjoy.
I know, but
Thank
they
you
changed
so
the
much,
course.
Momo,
It's
for stopping
wild.
by. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's always good to see you. And if you need to
Anyways,
sleep,
what you have
sleep.
to do here is push it
Sleep,
on
sleep,
2,
sleep.
4,
You just gotta get it in. Huh?
Cheers, cheers to
Nate,
some
if you
good
push
sleep.
it at 2, 4, 8,
Take care.
you should probably get it.
Can I, before we move on to
Who
the
the
next one,
fuck with
just tell her
lightning
we,
get all over the course
we
there?
cheers.
Daddy! Thank you for the alert, Nick.
I was already
I don't know whether. Wait,
Thank you, Nick. I gotta catch one of your streams again soon, Nick. It's been a while.
I'm gonna hold
Huh?
it.
Is that
I'm
your
holding it.
shift?
Oh,
Yeah,
oh, oh,
we're
is it gonna be a hole in one? Yeah!
I wanted to get a bar because of you. I didn't want to. Okay. Now that's
Looking cute, thank you. Woo, GG, right?
Wiggles, you made me so bad for like a half a second. I was like, where did you get a movie theater prop costume?
So,
Yo.
what the...
Honestly, I'm gonna buy Ninja Turtle suit.
Oh, yeah. 21st.
So,
Oh,
okay,
you-
Wiggles, what I've realized is that I'm an adult and
I will
paid
be.
my bills and I have money, so I can buy a Ninja Turtles costume. So why do I not have a Ninja Turtles costume?
My nephew would love it. You need to buy one.
What
then
is
show
wrong
up.
with me is right.
No, what we need to do, Splints, is
What do you...
we need to find 2 other dudes to meet up at Ninja Turtles and all
Oh, easy.
Oh,
I'm down.
yeah.
I'm down.
100%, I'm game. I'm game.
Yeah, no, that would be awesome. Like, I would cry. It was
One request. One request.
2 other dudes to do what?
Dress up in Ninja Turtle costumes and go over
Oh, yeah, that would be cool. Ninja Turtle.
Yeah, he's really into
Michelangelo or Donatello?
I'm
That's
Michelangelo.
what you all wear. But
I don't care. I can be the rat.
Lift it up.
Michelangelo's my spirit.
Oh no,
Don't let him.
I'll be the rat.
Come on.
Could you call in sick on the 21st? If you don't want sick.
I still got a bar. Can I recover?
What day? What month? What do you mean?
Just like, no.
Yeah, it would be. It would be.
It's not
I
a
could
job.
wear the costume on any day I needed to, as long as I had enough notice.
It's not a job I would ever do that with.
You would though. You would if I asked you
I
to.
would. I would.
Dude, just say
No,
If it made,
Mallory.
if it made children happy, I would do it.
Not to come to Mallory.
easily. I would do the same thing. I would wear any costume.
Oh, Michael's in 0 still. Gosh.
What's it, gross?
I mean, if you tell me what
These are
these
errors.
I
days
don't even know.
Tell me to the chameleon. I don't know.
then yes, I will pass that on to be like, I'm not working this.
I wouldn't
Kids are
ask for it. I would just
innocent.
get it.
No!
Make any
Just
difference.
short.
Sick leave.
I messed up.
So I'm entitled to sick leave.
Oh,
but
I went way
it's
low.
not, I don't.
What? Where is the
We'll
hole?
see.
Fuck the company, bro. You're just a number.
Oh, the hole's
Flex
over
your
there.
jam.
It's not.
Yeah.
It is completely like that. If I ask you,
I have way too many
bear
turns.
with me.
Double buddy.
Why is it hard? I really need.
Completely like that. If I asked you to come to
Hell yeah, brother.
Talk to Tom.
I get it in at 6, apparently.
I'm glad I at least made it over here.
6 seconds or 6 hours?
6 hours.
You never know when it's time to go.
Playing it slow and romantic.
So romantic.
You just phone in. You just say, I'm sorry, I'm not well this morning. I can't come in.
It's not like that. When
It's
I
a
call
hundred
it
percent like that. You're a company. You're
it's
entitled to it.
This
Oh,
is
yeah.
If you're off for 3 days,
What
or
the
off,
shit? It's like way behind us off to the right. Like, y'all realize that, yeah?
after stream.
What?
Anyways, it feels like you guys have some brotherly love.
The big house thingy? No.
With my
I'm looking around.
Oh, we're just in the gummy gum.
watch up.
Here, time to go.
Ew.
It's not. It really isn't.
Now nobody hit me.
Anyways, rank and tank. Are you gonna take the
Trying to line up.
I'm the last in line. Ladies now the last in
Oh,
line.
Bernie! Oh no!
Actually,
Artist is here.
what the fuck?
Hide.
No,
I'm in
you
Time
go.
to leave.
You go.
Time to hide.
Alright.
Ah,
Hide.
Y'all leave
Hide.
me
The artist is here.
the fuck alone.
Oh, this
I'm
game.
getting
Mega.
Why
I'm
do
not
you-
here.
I don't know why.
And Michigan.
No, I can't get up.
Hold on. It wasn't me that pushed that.
Hi,
Oh,
Dream
you
Angels. Which one? Working on it. I don't
I
know.
get touched by the marbles.
I
got
probably
punched
need to
twice.
refill it.
For some reason they didn't send me flying.
I'm falling. I can't get up. I can't find my chair.
From the front,
Yeah.
from the back.
Not enough. Definitely
get
not.
through the
Never
marbles.
enough.
Hold on a minute.
Balls flying
Oh.
at you, Joe.
Gotta fix
Well,
my ear.
Yo,
have
I
no
can't
hold.
handle balls flying.
It might take
Hold
like
does
a
not
hold
do
you
it.
off of
Try your peripheral vision. It's
I
something
can't.
for-
What?
No,
I don't have
can't.
it.
You're entitled to it legally.
Uh-oh.
You're entitled to sick leave.
I'm not.
Oh, I do
I'm
have
sick.
it. It's more of a
Welcome,
problem.
artists. Welcome, Dream
Still
Angels.
got a birdie.
Welcome to the stream. I hope y'all are having a good Friday
Get
evening.
69. Nate, you're
Welcome,
so
welcome,
close.
welcome.
If my
Wiggles has 100% hacks. He just won this game without even playing.
Wiggles.
He
Hell
won
yeah.
without playing. Wiggles
Hey,
won
he's
without
my
playing.
friend. I win.
I wasn't that far behind there.
Look, look.
and then
Wiggles won without playing.
off,
I just don't even know.
Zero
I've
has
never
no
seen this
value.
before. This is just messed up.
One off.
Look, I disappeared.
Anyways, Wiggles. Once he gets his
I really want a glass, but I
I
best
need
not.
to go. I need to go now.
Understandable. You don't have to all the time.
Do it up. Do it.
This is the first glass I've had in a couple weeks, so
Yeah, we
I
need.
apologize.
it makes me more sensitive to it. So I guess that's a good thing. I don't know. Wait, no. I think it's Saturday. Wait. Never mind. I take that back.
Have fun.
Take care.
Chill out.
Take care.
Drink water. Thank you, Dreams. I do have water.
2 in the morning. I need to
Yeah,
go.
catch you later, man.
4 hours. Bye. Have a wonderful time.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Have a good
Good
time.
night.
I love you.
I love you.
Go around.
Never
Does anyone
once
else
in my life
play?
will I tell him that I love him to his face.
Well, that's pretty
I
sad.
told. Hold on. I literally
haven't
just
tried
told
one, I know.
my sister I love you. Like a
Not
week
for
ago.
everyone.
I don't do that.
It's just I like. I don't know. I like the aromatics.
Life is short.
I like how effective it is. Like
I only like white wine.
I like
don't
that
like
it's
any
Because I like.
Don't drink.
it doesn't have bubbles, because sometimes all the bubbles for like beer like just make my stomach go.
I actually told my sister.
Or champagne, yeah. So I like wine. There's no bubbles and it's I like smooth wine. I don't like dry wine.
I've been telling her.
Are you a white, red, or rosy girl?
I love rosé the best.
Life is not only short.
Because rosé is just a little bit sweeter than white most of the time, unless it's a Moscato.
I don't think I've had a rosé actually.
Because it's temporary and everything is.
South African rosy.
7 years sober. Last thing I drank was Russian Prince vodka. That's amazing though. That's something to be proud of. It's
I
really
would
not
like
good for
actually,
you.
If I could extend this to the community that Kimono's in, if anyone has the availability to get Finlandia vodka. No.
And then
The
do it.
The crazy thing about
Where'd everybody go?
vodka is that it's
We're all
Apparently they
just a
don't
little
want
bit
spicy
tipsy.
3 rounds and you're out? We were gonna do speed golf,
Hey, I
Candyland.
wanted to go to bed. Not me.
What?
if you
It's
chill
9:30.
Finlandia vodka, it is like fucking.
I'm right here, babes.
But it affects
Wake
you.
up in the hospital will scare the crap out of you. Oh
very
yeah.
nice vodka.
Jeez, yeah. Okay. Yeah, be safe. Don't do anything your body doesn't like.
I've had Smirnoff Ice. Sorry, I've had Smirnoff vodka. I've had Glen's vodka. I've had numerous
What
other
are you
vodka.
doing right now? Are you admitting to crimes or something? Like what?
No, it's just like the type of alcohol.
I
So
know
I've
the chief
had
of
other
Scotland.
things, but what I'm trying to say to you is that if someone can get their hands on Finlandia vodka when it's chilled, mate, you don't need ice, you don't need fucking a mixer
Sorry,
to it.
Lady,
Oh god,
It's a nice
jeez,
vodka.
that's
how
terrifying.
old is that cat?
Yeah. All
This
good
one?
now. Laugh,
yeah.
cat, kid, but
He'll be 5 in
got
July.
very dark humor. Oh.
My cat's old.
Okay.
I'm sorry you had to deal with that, Dreams. And I'm glad you're okay and you're safe now. Cameron, come on. There it goes. But I'm glad you're okay and you're safe now. And yeah, I would totally stay away from it forever too. If I had a bad experience it's like that.
I don't want her to have
What? Issues.
My cat has. I need to show them. No, I need to tell her that
Thank you. I'm now best TV from her
Matthew's
buddies.
house.
Oh yeah! We need to hang out. I need some margaritas. Just kidding.
I just don't want to right now. I love my
I need some margaritas. I know a place.
I will do it.
To be fair, Michigan, when they no longer jump or walk properly.
No,
No, it's not that. It's
I
not
know.
reckless.
I'm terrified of it.
Yeah. But if you
I do
finish every
though.
life
I
by
go
doing
place
it,
that has great
I know, I mean,
margaritas,
it's not
and
even
I
that
need
close.
I need a DT.
I just.
they do
I don't complain about state Pokemon.
They
All the
thank you.
Pokemons. Are you guys ready for another round of golf, like speed golf? Are we doing this?
If you're
Aye.
doing it, then no, not yet. I need to go for a piss
Ah!
first.
I think we're all dying.
Oh, hurry!
Okay.
I'm not going
Next time we're out, we
to
should get margaritas. Yes.
God damn.
100%
Margaritas.
agree. I love margaritas. I
I was
love
doing so
frozen
bad.
margaritas so much.
I'll stick around.
Got a drink and it was the size of your head. I believe it. Those fancy mugs were like huge.
What a name.
And
Good grief.
I believe it. That's what how far south you know. Oh yeah, you would melt down here. 100%. You would melt right now. It was like 80 something today. It was like all tequila and $50. Oh my gosh. What did
Keep
you
looking at it.
get?
098.
Wow.
Then it was like
Minus
underscored.
45 C yesterday. I would freeze to death in 2 seconds. You might melt and I will freeze to death up there.
43896.
It was worth it because you still have done it all day. Nice. Michigan with a hiding in a safe place. Ooos.
No, I'm
I
scared.
got some dragon blood thing. Mmm.
Annie?
Sounds good. Poke catch. You want kabutops? Kabutops.
I already have great balls, so I don't have to.
Great balls. Oh
Sorry.
yeah.
I was-
Where's the weird search symbol? Oh, there it is.
Right now it's negative 30 Celsius. Just to smoke. Oh my god, don't do that. Don't even go outside. Just quit smoking, please.
Don't open
Yeah.
a window either. You'll invite the cold
I,
in.
to be fair,
Every-
you can't tell somebody not to, but it's.
Cut Crocs on. Those are the best shoes. They're so comfortable. Do you have socks on?
Wrong. I must have typed that wrong.
Oh, okay, James. But do you have socks on?
Okay, so to
I
all
have
those
sex.
people that are in the channel,
Yes, I'd be crazy not to. Yeah, you would
Send
lose your
this to you.
toes.
I'm not gonna
You
send
would
it.
lose your
No.
toes. You would have no toes
that
left.
are-
Nicotine is
to
bad.
all those people in the channel that are sitting at negative Celsius and walking out in
In
fucking
Crocs.
for goodness sake.
Yes. They're actually quite warm.
So I was just-
Don't sleep.
Living in Florida, my feet get too hot in Crocs sometimes because they are that warm and insulated, even though they have
Your
holes in
feet
them.
too hot in Crocs. Are
Look,
you not
No
feeling
gloves,
hot
though.
and not?
No, you need gloves.
look, staying in
They
Scotland,
don't sleep.
where we don't really kind of have any.
You're scared of getting your toes stuck in
Crazy
holes.
cold
Oh,
weather.
you missed their tiny little
Granted,
toes.
it's rainy,
Yeah, moisture.
but when
no
it
good.
when it's like fucking like below zero,
Oh.
that is like the instant factor of saying I need to put on some hard shoes and
What?
like wrap up
I'm not
warm.
doing awesome.
None of
Yeah?
this fucking
Yeah?
Crocs malarkey.
I'm
Where's the
tiny.
searching
Makes
on-
sense, makes sense.
Alright.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't go out in snow if
Yeah.
I
I am back.
Tiny and cute.
You're back?
No.
Okay, everybody leave.
Can confirm.
I'm the back.
Unless it's like
I'm
one
gonna
to
just
2
watch you.
inches.
I'm just gonna watch y'all play golf.
No, I'm not.
No
playing.
speed golf for you?
No, I didn't get to practice on this one, so I'm not gonna play it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not playing it because
Alright.
I got a call from my doctor saying that there's too many holes.
There's a what?
Too many holes.
Oh, jeez.
Guys, I need you to help me figure out
Michigan,
if I
get
am.
out. Get out.
Hold on.
If you are.
Please.
Fine, you don't like my joke. I'm
What do
leaving.
you got, Splints?
I need you to tell me if I cannot see patterns or something.
Are you
Patterns.
trying to search for that person that I sent?
No, you.
Well, I might be, but
Thank
that's not
you.
the point. That's not the point. In the top right channel here, right? You know, in the current channel, I'm gonna paste what's bothering me. Am I crazy?
You could be crazy.
What?
No.
Oh, there's a space.
Yeah.
Oh.
You're crazy. You're crazy.
All right,
Yeah.
confirmed. I'm crazy.
Did I just get the
Maybe not
same
crazy, but
like
just
message
weird.
though?
I'm crazy.
Maybe not crazy, possibly dyslexic.
Oh,
No,
but
wait
it's
a minute,
still
I'm
the same. It's still the same search results. So no, I'm not crazy.
I got like
I only get
the
two. I
same
get two
spam
results.
though. Where's it at?
They never messaged in that Discord either. Like, there's
I
no
get two
messages in the
results.
Discord.
That's all I get. So I don't know what's up with that.
I don't know. Anyway.
I'm a
Oh, we
fan.
could use an announcer again though. If somebody wants to.
Oh, well,
Oh, there it is. Do I start with the thank you? Okay.
No, you can
All
skip the
fine.
thank you.
Hold on. I need to take a sip.
Announcer! Well, the Frosty Tools.
Their voice.
I'll do
Ad
the
All right,
break.
here we go. Thank you for your support during these ad breaks. Be right back soon. In the dim glow of KimonoKat's dream, a tale unfolds. Clumsy Momoro bids adieu with sweet dreams and spooky tunes. The chat's wild Pokemon chase ends in escape and capture alike. The artist mate jests of head-sized drinks and dragon blood while dreams angels braves the frost for a smoking smoking crocs without gloves. A night of camaraderie during dark humor and elusive Kabuto tops. I don't know. I maybe misread that.
No, that was great.
There's
we have no
more.
problem.
Gosh. All right.
My
Wow,
client-
it's a turtle
Thank you
just
so much,
zoomed
Turtle.
into the VIP club with a Twitch sub. Even turtles can't resist the speed and hype of KimonoKat's Friday Speed Golf shenanigans. Your support is the turbo boost we all needed. Thanks for making this Friday even more fantastic.
Thank you for the sub. Thank you for the 54 months. Thank you, thank you, thank
Can't
you.
talk to Splints because he's my client. So.
Have a good night. Thank you, Dreams. You take care.
Nope.
Stay warm. Get your butt inside.
It's like a joke.
Hold
And
on.
catch all them Pokemon.
It's gonna be
That
John
yellow
Pillow.
Yeah.
Alright, we're gonna do some speak off. We're gonna do it. We're gonna do it.
Speed.
Let's get ready.
Give it a moment. Give it a moment.
All right, I'll probably join back again.
Yes.
What the heck?
Do it!
Why not?
I'm back. Let's go. Speak off.
You know what? I complain so much about the fact that I'm not here when it's golf. So
Yeah. So
You better
be here
play.
when it
You
is.
better
Yeah,
play.
you better be playing, dude.
You had a
Look.
free win last round.
listen here. There's no need to
No,
fucking
Wiggles
about me
had a
up
free
when
win
it comes
last
to playing
round.
golf. I'm playing fucking
Did
golf.
you ever play
No.
this with... Did I ever play this with you all? I don't know.
I'm not
I
sure.
don't
Silent.
remember.
If you did, it was obviously a really long time ago.
Anyways,
but
I think the last time we played together was Stardew, I think.
We're still here.
Yeah,
I
you
think
know
it
what,
was Stardew.
I got my golf watch on.
we haven't even played it on that farm. in
My
a
golf
while.
I
watch
got
on.
my wrists, which are pretty
Yeah.
Yeah, I got my golf watch on. So far, I have
about
done.
Stardew now. Do you guys pause
It's,
time?
Anyways,
12 o'clock.
So to know whether I'm playing the modded version or the unmodded version. If I'm playing modded, I do pause time.
Yeah.
Williams, I love golf.
Pausing
That's
time
all.
sounds good.
Alright, speak off begins. Let's
Use
go.
a hockey stick to go.
5,
Out of-
4,
Oh.
3, 2. Children, you're not. We're starting.
One.
No more.
I got banned. What the hell?
Fucking hell.
Banned from everything, Michigan. 100% banned. Yeah, we
Can
just
I just
started. Yes,
clarify,
and paused the
just
time of the
ask one.
game so Mono could get
Just
back
ask
to
one.
her bed. Yes. Woohoo!
God, dang it. That one always
Anyways.
gets me. And I
Good
always
job.
I
have
can watch
it.
other people get it and
Oh, right. We also have.
No! I'm
Don't
failing
forget
in the
about-
time thing big time.
Oh,
God, it
there
don't
it
even.
is.
I hate being timed. I want to take my time.
Girl.
Whoa.
I take it
What
back.
did I do?
I take it back. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
my
Take my time.
Into the DMs.
What did I
baby.
do?
I get last
I
place.
How do I
slip
know
into the
you?
DMs. I'm just trying to take my time, but they're trying to do
Crazy shit.
rhymes.
DMs? Who's in your
Wow.
DMs? Mhm.
I'll share with you later. Mona.
I'm gonna get jelly.
I slid into their DMs.
Ooh.
Well,
Because they
Blitz
tried
is
to
in
be
my DM.
fishy.
I'll dip into everyone's
Mm.
events DMs.
I don't want you in my DM streams.
He's been in my dream
I'll be honest
DMs
with you.
all night. Mm. Just
I'll be
kidding.
honest with you, I don't know why. Because I am probably the best DMer.
Okay, well,
Yeah, right.
Should
You're
not
probably
be.
making it weird.
I think I had a similar
being
conversation with
weird,
that same
like, I'm-
person. I'll just try to dig it up.
Wholeheartedly.
I'm
He's
gonna
nice.
just
That's funny.
Yeah.
He's not weird.
I can't tell
I mean,
you how
it's
many
not
types of
funny,
it's
conversations
not
I
funny,
had like
but
that.
you know,
You're gonna
you know
try
what
to
I
dig it
mean,
up with
you
your
know what I
toes?
mean.
Oh
Dig it
yeah,
up
all
with
the
your
pizza
toes.
toes.
Oh.
Just the pizza toes.
Hello? You
Not
can't
the
be mad
pizza
at my
toes.
pizza toes.
Yeah, it's just the pizza toes for splints.
I feel like we're
Jeez,
under we're
I keep
under
trying
control.
trying
So-
too hard. It never works out.
Just so hard.
I think we should be under control.
I can't even make it over the chocolate lumps.
Get so
I don't
far.
typically
My
have
humps,
Yeah,
much
my
of an
lovely
issue.
lady.
What the
Try-
fuck is
Oh,
Why
happening?
did I hit reset?
This
when I
hole
first
gives
had
me
it?
hell, I swear. I understand
Well,
splints
welcome
100%. This
to-
hole just gives me heck.
What am I doing? Not free cam. What am I
You're
trying
good,
to do?
you're good.
I just want to.
I
This is
can't.
why
I
I
can't
go.
get it.
This is
Fuck.
Yeah.
Oh my
Dream.
God.
on
Oh,
18 holes.
why did I do that?
Go ahead, Dreams. Go, 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 go. You can beat Lady Rain. First time we all beat Lady Rain ever. We need to like clip that.
I'm
We
the last
beat
one.
her.
Lady Rain.
Jesus.
I beat her.
Lady Rain.
Holy
She just-
fuck.
She doesn't like it, so we don't talk about it. It's alright.
You don't like what?
Yeah, I don't give a
God.
fuck. I'll fucking point it out.
It's ridiculous. That's what I'm trying to
Doesn't
say.
like it? What? Oh no! I messed up.
When I beat her, no, who would like that?
Ridiculous.
Why you
Oh, what the hell?
That was ridiculous.
Messed up like 2
Oh, I thought we were
times.
doing Harry Potter.
Oh,
Harry
I
Potter
hit the
stuff.
frickin'.
Split! Blame splits.
I didn't do it on purpose. Stop
Lady,
it.
it was fucking
I
close,
blame
buddy.
splits.
It
I've
was
been
close.
sabotaged. No!
Yeah, I
Jump
did it
down the
quite a bit.
hill.
Okay, I'm gonna send you.
Better
Alright.
not
Oh,
speak
I thought you
golfing,
were ready
I
for it, but
swear.
You weren't
I'm gonna
ready
be
for it. I
last
was
in
gonna
the
send
hole.
you.
Me and Lady.
Oh,
will
that's
be
a tiny
fucking
sub
always
sandwich. Where's the middle part? We need the middle. We need the whole sandwich. Need the whole sandwich there.
Excuse me,
Into
I
the
never
DM,
questioned where the
not
middle
pass
part
hole.
was.
coming after you, lady.
Who's in whose DMs? What am I missing the party?
Nothing. I slipped
Oh,
in
whatever.
everybody's DM.
I'm missing the party.
I slipped into Spencer's DM.
Fuck, I keep jumping.
And he liked it.
No, I didn't like it. I was like, this
No,
is kind of
he,
weird.
I didn't say you liked it. I said he liked it.
Oh.
Yeah. Delivery, takeout.
I'm trying to
Pikachu!
teach you at the
If
same
you,
time
if you
when I'm
just
calling
hop
you.
into
Yeah,
the
2A.
marsupial,
2A? There's 2A.
That's why he kept calling me Joey, because I
Pika,
kept
Pika.
hopping into the pot.
oh, I
No,
until somebody
no,
hit
yes.
me midair, and that was lovely.
Hey,
I'll take
you
it
bitch.
second.
I'm sorry, that was mean.
Oh,
How dare you?
Actually, that time I messed it up.
That
Alright,
she
so-
only says that to
Oh,
she only
my
says that to
bad.
Brooke. So I
Did it
mean,
again.
count yourself special.
But I don't apologize to Brooke because she is a bitch.
See,
I
that's all I was trying to do in the first round.
She's your bitch. She's your
Queen?
bitch.
I have witnessed Brooke in this mode, so I can
I love
confirm
my
she
cat.
can be that way.
She's a
Brooke
bitch.
in this
Brooke is a spoiled little bitch, is
mode.
what she is.
Especially to El Doggo.
Are
Totally
we
a
gonna
queen.
sing songs about?
Oh, yeah.
She is.
I love my
definitely
cat.
the queen of the household. And she makes sure everyone knows about it.
She doesn't like to be picked up. Rain picked her up, and she took it out on the dog.
Lady Rain,
Fight,
you
fight.
really gotta
Ray
do
picked
it for
up
me. I understand.
Brooke,
I
cute little
understand.
kitty,
Hey,
put her
I
right
helped
back
you in so many
down,
holes
and then she goes up
that
to the
I
dog and goes,
can't play
smack,
it.
smack, 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 blames it
Do
on the
you help
dog.
me on holes?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
for
helped
that
you with all
bitch to
those.
pick me up.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that was a great. No.
All the pickup
Gretzky.
emotes I own. That's so
That
neat.
was
I love them.
snarky.
I need more pickup emotes. Pika, pika, pika.
Am I trying to
We both did that very well.
I didn't even touch you this time.
like?
No,
This
but you
time
gotta
I'm
Stop
be
sorry.
trolling, Bob.
I
There
hit
we
the
go.
wrong hole because I was all like Pikachu.
You're like, ooh, oh, and then
Honestly, I got lucky with the upper turbo gate.
This is why
I
I'm not
messed that
playing,
one all
'cause I
up.
can't see
I
the
get
whole
last place. I keep forgetting we're playing speed golf here. That's the
Right?
problem.
I keep forgetting about the S. I
I'm about
keep
to say,
hitting C.
Kimono, why
and
you
it
trying
does
to-
nothing.
Got me almost
you're
Still hit
accidentally
W.
hitting the button to join my husband's Discord chat that he's in with
That's
his friends.
it's gonna fuck me up.
He'd be like, what the hell, Ray? Get out of here. No girls allowed.
Hey, what are you doing, man? My friends are cool.
Here, who's he in there
Oh,
with? He's in there with his boyfriend. Maybe.
oh, is that for your
Oh,
boyfriend?
his side man. What is, not
I
side
know
chick, what do you
that.
call a side man? Side bro?
The wingman.
Side
Wingman.
I was gonna
The
say
other
that, yeah,
dude.
side bro.
My
Side
husband-
move.
My
Bromance.
husband's boyfriend.
You just called the other
Yeah.
dude. Like, dudes understand.
Well,
it's
it's
all
like-
It's
fine.
bromance.
Like what
That's a
Kimono
side
said,
move.
it's not a side chick, it's a side bro.
Side
So
bro.
it literally is that.
Yeah.
The proper
Side
bro
bro.
would be
No, side move.
Side move.
Side move.
My side move.
Like a
No,
cow.
no. It's
No,
side.
move.
Side move.
That makes no
Discord
logic.
chat.
No, it makes logic.
Yeah.
No, it's more of a side bro.
Side move.
I'll take that gate.
So, I was on this phone call today and I accidentally joined some random chat while I was on a phone
Are you still
call.
alive?
And I didn't know I could be in Discord and on a phone call at the same time. And I was like, where's this noise coming from? I dipped out so fast. I don't even know what Discord it was, but I was in there about 3 whole seconds and dipped.
Oof.
I try to be
No, no
very
side
careful
bob.
on-
Ooh, you're weird people.
No side bob.
They're always
Side
weird.
Bobby.
They're weird.
Side bob.
Oh, yep. Yep. See, all you gotta do is get in the chocolate. The
No,
chocolate will
that's
take
not
you
where I
home.
want to go, but that
The
kind of
chocolate
works.
will take you home.
Is some Hershey.
It'll take you home.
Chocolate takes you home. Takes you back all
Get to
those
the Hershey,
memories.
you're gonna get the golden
Mhm.
I
ticket.
might have been last in, but I'm still up there.
A Hershey
But
is
you're
like the
still
most sexist
first.
name for a candy bar ever.
Apparently, I'm
Don't
last.
make me
First, I
Hershey.
said
I blame the wine.
The wine
Yeah, I
is
know,
I
I
know.
good.
The wine is my
Yep.
enemy.
Yep. Yep.
Anyways,
Fire watch tonight until 8 p.m.
Uh-oh.
Turtle.
It's 9:50, so I have no idea what 8
Hold
p.m.
on,
is.
talk about question. For the
8
Bob
PM is
talking
in
guy
fucking
in the call,
5 hours.
side under
No,
or
what I'm
top.
trying to say is they're an
Oh,
hour behind
side,
my
under,
time
or
telling me about
top?
a fucking thing that already
Which
happened.
one's Bob?
Oh,
It's super windy here.
Bob. Hey, wait, are they asking, like, from the viewpoint of, have you ever watched Twin Peaks?
I don't know.
I watch that all the
Let's
time.
find out!
Pokemon was called
Sorry.
like cat turtle. I don't
The
know.
cat.
Ask him. Apparently, you're now you're Bob. You're nominated to be Bob, so
They
you get
don't
to answer the
tend to
question.
Be
they don't
gold.
tend to
Good Bob.
Bob talking guy in the call. Side, under, or
You're
top?
Bob the Builder.
Ooh, that's nice. I'm only 2 over par. It's all.
Yes, Twin Peaks. You were right. You were right, Splints.
Yeah, Twin Peaks. Hell yeah.
Look at Delta. How did you get the heart? Today's like the last day to get the freaking heart, and I've tried and tried to get the heart, and it won't give it to me.
I'm just saying that.
I'm so mad.
Just happened.
I've done the clip and share and clip and share and clip and share, and nothing happens. I don't get the heart.
How do you?
You got it
where
last
do you
week?
share it though? Like, is it on Twitch or do you have to share
It gives you
somewhere else?
options when you go to share. You could share it anywhere, but it says you can even just copy and paste. Use the copy button. But I even shared like on Reddit for the hell of it to see what would happen because it didn't me either. I'm so mad. You're supposed to be able to do it through today.
And they said that it takes a few days to get the email, but I never even got the email.
Nope. No email, no nothing.
Oh.
No cookie.
Mono. I have it. They never sent me the email, but I have it.
Lucky. I'll double check real
Look
quick.
at your badges. Because, like I said, they didn't do it.
Yeah. I'll look again, but I didn't have it the other day.
Oh, it's one of these. I hate these. I hate them so damn much.
I can find the dang
like,
thing. Oh, it's speed golf. I forgot. Dang it. No, I messed
You have to
up.
speed, man.
I forgot it was speed golf. I'm sitting here looking for a badge. Oh, goodness. I'm failing at the speed golf thing.
Center gate behind the nougat.
Totally.
All Twin Peaks matter.
Dude, what? Dude, I'm gonna fucking buy that hat.
I do have it! Oh my gosh, I did get
appropriate.
Yes! I wanted that badge so bad. It's so cute. Now I'm gonna let me use it. Test. It didn't do it though, but I have it.
There you go. You're in.
It says learn more. It won't let me select it. Maybe because I'm live. I don't know. As long as I have it, I can activate it later.
Yeah, you
Test,
have to
test.
change
Wiggle.
it in, like, the little setting or whatever.
You're winning. So, winning.
Yeah, I am.
Oh yeah, 937.
No, I'm trying to help you
You
out.
can custom badge on. You have?
I got that cheese. Y'all can
You
have
better
fun
win.
with that.
Dreams.
I don't know what that means. Yes, Mono. The
How can I
Twilight
recruit
Zone
you to
is
my
real.
speedball
And we are in it. I don't know. I like
Yeah,
it.
you can change which one you want.
Did I win? Oh, fuck.
Probably, because I'm in last.
No, you
I'm
won.
doing real good
No,
at this
we got-
last place
we got
thing.
a couple more holes.
Oh my god. We won't even talk about that. That's probably never happened to me.
Anyways, Dreams, you better win.
Bitch.
Really?
Hey, I'll be winning. For sure I'm winning.
You better.
Here.
I
If
would
anyone
Really?
count on get
Really?
my fucking ball and
Really?
I'll it's gonna be fixed.
Tyler, you have
there's
custom
a
badges
hole-
on, which
if
only
there's a
show
hole
the
for
badge you
most
picked for the
goals,
shot. Of course, yeah. I tried changing it while I was live and it wouldn't let me change it.
Are you in? You're in?
That's what I was trying to
alright.
say.
We're just waiting on
You
Flint.
in?
Yeah, I mean, I was
I
just
tried changing it on here and it wouldn't change it, so I gotta go to a different screen. Now it'll let me do it. I had to change out of my stream mode.
How do I not get any ads? But I'm not subscribed.
How does that work?
My modem's going to ad break. I haven't gotten an ad.
What?
And I get ads every time I'm on Twitch.
What up?
What ads?
What up?
You know when Frosty Tools pops up and does ads?
Uh-huh. Drink water.
Yeah, I
Drink
never
water,
get
flush
the
it.
ads.
I still want five.
Ah. Oh, I'm too slow.
Oh no, I went.
Too slow.
Your lies
Get in the hole.
Get in the hole, woman.
God damn it, woman! Get that
That
fucking
was
hole
in the
shut!
hole, woman.
I beat Rain for once. Once. I may be in last
'Cause
place,
I could not.
but once.
I couldn't give power, apparently.
Ugh.
Let's
God,
go.
I just say-
Board.
I'm just gonna put this.
Posture
right
check? Okay.
I'm just gonna put this right out there. That is the very first time I think I've ever heard someone who's a woman say, "Get in the hole,
I
woman."
know. I said it to
And I'll be honest with you, like it's not far from fucking being
There you go. 2 holes left. Watch
intriguing.
out.
You know,
Oh,
I'm
did it
trying
do
to- I'm
something
trying to
for
hold
you?
the quorum here. I'm trying to hold
Watch
the
out.
quorum.
Watch out
I
now.
mean,
Hold
fuck
on,
your
we got
dude,
2
and all
holes.
that kind of shit.
Another
That's
win,
it.
James. We got
It
2
does
holes
that.
left.
Oh, excuse
Hey,
me.
lady.
Full
Huh?
yeet is a negative.
Woo! There we go, again.
I fucked up like 3 times.
Get it? I got it.
Uh,
I got it.
that-
Got it.
that is-
He's
that's
sorting
not the whole
3
I'm looking
peaks now.
Fucked up too
Peaks.
many fucking times.
Hey, lady, say hi in chat in Mono's chat.
Hi.
No, like,
What the hell just happened to me?
Type hi.
Hi, and a half.
Hiya.
Oh, it's deeper than my head.
Alright, there I'm in.
Oh,
Hiya.
sorry,
It's not
Y'all
very.
feel that?
It's not very often that I
On
come
Twitch.
across a hole that has a crevasse between it. So, oh, okay.
Are you
yeah, I
a
got it.
boss?
Heart.
Well, that was a
Yay.
crevasse.
Fine.
You cannot deny that was a crevasse.
All in love. All in love.
Yeah, pretty much a
It's
pit.
fine.
I
Oh,
have to
yeah,
do
I'm
the
still.
thing now.
still
Yeah,
almost-
let go of my ball, you dang thing.
God damn.
Oh
Took me
my
a minute and
gosh.
fucking 9. Took me a
Thank
minute
you
and 10
so
seconds.
much for gifting a sub to Lady
to
Ring.
get
Thank
my
you, thank you,
ball.
thank you, thank you.
I better stay
Hype,
for
hype, hype.
the next.
Will's just rigged the stream with their 18
yeah,
gifted
oh, yeah,
subs,
oh,
making
yeah.
it a nutty and delightful as their favorite snack. KimonoKat is streaming.
Switch your
KimonoKat stream
call.
is now officially the best kind of rigged with generosity and support. Thanks for making the community
You
celebrate.
don't
Wiggles.
really understand.
Celebrate. We're talking about turtles again, I guess.
Fucking hell, get out my way.
After you
Don't.
outside work.
Apparently, it took time to read that, and I'm gonna be in last place.
Fucking
Still.
dick. You absolute fucking dick. How did
Fuck
you
you.
do that?
I got
Dude.
it split
No,
second
you're a
before
dick.
you.
No.
Oh, you fucking dick. I got fucking thrown off again. I could be there.
That's what you get for hitting me off the track.
Heathenous, goodness bastards.
One of the balls.
I was
hit
there.
me.
I was there.
Jump.
Jamie, yeah, we're playing.
Yes.
No.
Bricks. Woo, I won last.
Normally, I do this normally in
I
like
was
1
only
or
10 microseconds behind you.
I do
Yes.
this like
Already
normally
Black
1 or 2.
cat ears, you got it, man.
I
You
was
got
only
it. You got
10
it.
bites around.
Black
Bam,
cat ears.
bam. Alright, I'll be right back.
We getting spicy.
How dare you?
For fuck's sake,
Boom.
that would have been a whole load easier if you just got out my way. You know what I mean?
Ears.
I just want,
I mean,
all I want,
matches-
all I want
matches
in a game of golf, all I want in a game of golf is just to get my ball in the hole.
Oh, we all want, right? There's-
It, am I right? Am I right?
I don't know.
They're nice.
But then
But I fucked up a few of those rounds.
What?
what, you fucked up your hole or your ball? Oh.
I missed that. So who won? I missed it.
I did.
Probably is.
Of course.
Did you? Did you? Really?
Or did I win? Because I had last place.
Oh,
Hmm.
reel it back. Reel it back. I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure
that's
right
what
up
I
there.
want,
I was
son.
right up
No.
there.
That's what I want.
I was right up there.
No,
No.
I still won.
Nope.
Don't.
I still
you
won.
know you're never gonna win speed golf. It's all me.
Okay.
Lady
I need a
does
pee
very
break.
good at speed.
Yeah.
She does.
And then we're gonna do one more speed
I'm
round.
not, I'm not saying you lost. I'm not saying you lost. I'm not saying you lost at all. I'm just saying that maybe, just maybe, you.
The play's always fun to balls in the whole silent.
Well, wait a minute. That's not how it works.
Oh, just a fucking minute. I reckon.
I had a joke, and I'm not gonna say it.
I reckon
I mean, if you want to be balls deep, I'm not gonna judge you.
I'm just saying I think I came first. That's all I'm gonna say.
I have no comment.
Pretty sure I came first.
You always make the woman come first, dude.
Well, look. In this occasion,
Typical dude. I came first.
Well,
I
in
can
this
just
occasion,
imagine Mono's probably just cackling in the fucking bathroom where
I'm trying to PG it, which is
nice. Look,
I'm never a PG person. I'm PG.
Can't hear this time.
my competitiveness.
You know what's funny is I think I
Lady
won over
does
you,
very
but
well
you're over
at-
there going like, I'm so superior.
No,
Lady does very
No,
well
no,
at speed
no.
golf. Speed golf, she does. That's it.
You know-
There's no puns. There's no.
There's no Rapunzel.
There's a
we pundles. I don't know.
There's often.
I know nothing, I know nothing, I know nothing.
You're not able, you know. There's the comment
Cheers.
saying which is. Oh, hold on.
All the beers.
I'm pouring myself a drink. Calm down.
I just
No,
mentioned
you calm down because you're behind.
Well, technically yes.
No, technically.
Yes. Even being in front, you're still behind.
There's the comment saying which is
Yes.
I was
good
trying
guys
to
spinning
PG it,
class.
which is weird.
Are we
There's the
ready?
comment saying which is,
Look, camera. Come back.
yeah.
Oh no, no
I
warm up.
smack it.
I can
I
jump.
hate this camera sometimes.
Hold
It's
on.
so bad.
Well, I always smack my head.
Y'all got no warm up here.
Smack it. That's not how you do it.
Smack it.
Push it, twist it,
No,
crank
you
it.
smack
pop
your
it.
Smack
camera
it.
like, ooh, yeah.
Push it. Twist it.
Just push it.
Kimono,
and
are we
twist
not
it,
getting a
and
warm up?
turn it and pop it.
No
And
warm
now
up.
you do
No,
the
we're going
thing
in
again
hard.
and
We're
pop
going
it.
in
Yep,
hard.
we're going in.
Okay,
We're going in fast.
I can live with that.
Fast and hard. Bop it extreme.
Go
Bop
fast
it.
and hard.
Like,
You
You're
can get to bed early.
You're not still streaming, are you?
Yes. 100%.
Oh, damn. Mate, that ship's getting
Hey,
clipped.
keep your selfish chin check.
Well,
It's just
we're
getting
keeping it balanced a little bit.
Whip it, pop it, push it.
Bop it extreme. Opo catch.
Yeah.
What? Okay, you're
It's
water.
a ghosty ghost. Ring.
No.
Phone catch.
Fucking. Sanjavat.
Let's go, Lions.
Fuck it. No
Alright.
goes with that. Okay, sorry. Cheers.
Turtles. I love that call.
Let's go Red Wings tomorrow, am I right?
Exclamation tackle. You can tackle the Pokemon. Alright. Here we go. 5, 4. Oh wait.
They
Battle
sold
Cat's missing.
90,000 tickets. Yes,
We're missing a player.
Man down, man
Man
down.
down, man down.
Heading to bed.
Hockey game.
I drink too much and
Alright,
feel
here
sleepy.
we go.
Sleep well. Good night.
Go to bed, sleep well, and hope your dreams
Thank you again
are
for the sub.
as
Thank you,
crazy
thank you,
as
thank you.
That's one.
Don't wake up with a hangover.
I
Oh, yeah,
smacked the
those-
game with a splashy spice.
Smack the game with splashy spice.
He's old, of course he's gonna wake up with a hangover.
Oh.
I don't.
Ah,
Did
Stop
we drink
I don't
this
drink,
spaghettios?
I don't drink, so I don't know what that means.
Oh no.
Sorry?
Where is Battle Cat coming back?
I heard my name, but you didn't repeat.
Let's give him 2 minutes. I'll start a timer. Hold
Sorry,
on.
dude.
Okay. 2 minutes for Battle Cat. In the meantime, we'll entertain with some kind of weird intermission. I don't know what it is yet. Michigan ships with KimonoKat. Does that make it a Michigan cat or a kimono brew? I like the idea of a kimono brew.
It's up to you.
I bet it tastes delicious.
A kimono
My
brew?
own
What's
personal
a
brew
kimono brew?
of beer.
What if
Kimono
we
brew.
looked up
Also, side chat for the response that I got from my
that's not what I'm trying to look
husband's
at.
boyfriend.
No,
Yes,
stop.
yes.
Oh.
No, yeah.
My husband's boyfriend.
Cybro.
Your husband's boyfriend.
Cybro.
Side bro.
Best friend.
Yeah.
Dude, that's
My
my
husband's side bro is also
His best friend.
lovely.
He's called his boyfriend.
Oh my
This is
gosh.
Attic. I'll
No,
be
that
honest,
actually
dude.
makes sense because you
Hi,
get
lady. Check out
the
chat.
sign, bro.
Adequate answer.
Why are you licking me?
not many
I did not
Bro.
consent.
No, I
I lick
default.
Jack,
No, not
Jack,
default.
no.
Theater mode.
No.
I don't know.
Only bots.
Tongue like sandpaper.
Why?
Oh, I pushed the
Why?
wrong button.
Can I not skip it?
No. No,
Burn
I don't want to
spleen.
ship
Liberty,
a turtle.
liberty, liberty.
Splits his booty is burning.
Booty, booty.
The
Burn
splits
it,
of
burn
booty.
it,
What?
burn it.
No, I mean liberty, liberty. No, can I end it? Please?
Turn them lights down low.
I can't roar.
Why is it going?
I don't have a poo.
Let's just get the fucking.
Yeah, but I
You're
got
in
my
my
bite.
ad
Hey,
block,
kids,
and this is
my bite.
playing.
I bit the fucking bot.
Oh, now I can skip it. Nice.
I booped the bot.
Hide your kids, hide your wife, hide your kids, hide
Alright,
your
I'm
wife.
gonna share this in here.
Bitch, hide kids. Hide kids, bitch.
It didn't make the
Damn, that's
noise.
you, Spence.
It didn't go. That was easy. Dang bot.
Sorry, all that
Yeah, see,
Kissing and
that's
hugging
why
and
I set
embracing,
an
I'm sorry,
alarm,
Spence.
because it was supposed to be 2 minutes or whatever.
Sorry, my brain.
So has it been past 2 minutes, you said?
It has.
Oh,
yeah.
well, Bad Cat's back. So we can do this. Time for speed golf.
heck yeah.
Get ready, Bad Cat. Get your hands in position. Right hand on the mouse,
No,
left hand on the
he's-
keyboard.
I'm confused.
Get ready to
accepted.
golf.
Get on your
Wait,
mark.
you're biting me. I don't know. Maybe I was hungry.
We're going into speed golf, Jamie. You better be ready.
Better run, better
You
run.
better put your
Are
foot down.
you
You need to be
ready
ready.
to press
He
S?
isn't.
Ready?
Hold on.
You should
Sit.
leave if you're not
Ready
ready.
to press S.
Does S apply? Does S apply?
Yes,
Jamie,
S works in
Jamie,
speed
you're not ready.
only. S is for speed and stop.
S is not for speed.
Jamie,
but
leave.
yes.
If you're eating, Jamie, leave.
Oh no, I'm
Guys,
good.
get on.
Come on.
Are you good?
You
Ready?
You dirty,
Set.
you dirty, dirty
Go.
Put
cheater.
your stuff down.
Cut your whole upright
I don't know what
disability.
you're talking about, Splits. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, it's
I
up
have
to
no
you,
idea.
Jamie. It's up to you.
I'm getting in first.
Well, look.
I'm getting in all of these holes first. Fuck you.
Oh
Yeah,
my
it's
god.
all about it.
Preach.
Like I said,
Got
lady
it,
has
got-
won
got
every
it,
single.
got
Okay,
it,
now I'm
got
done.
it.
Fuck
Oh,
it.
why did
I
you
just
hit me
totally
so
messed up
damn hard?
already.
I was,
Oh,
my
I
No.
God.
did it anyway.
Who hit
I
me?
thought
Lady
I
always
was-
gets
I
it in
fucked
first.
that up, but I still got in first.
Welcome to the
Lady,
stream,
1 second later.
guys.
Sorry,
Welcome, welcome,
okay,
welcome,
I was on a
Nico.
different rhythm.
I
Just
fucked
saying.
that up.
Nico, Nico.
I'm just pointing this out. I was under pressure. I was under
Under
pressure.
pressure.
I couldn't perform.
I honestly thought you'd
I-
say
Sing it,
before I
Splits.
got there-
Under pressure.
Under
I was
pressure.
I was
Dun,
definitely
dun,
there
dun,
for
dun,
second.
dun, dun. Dun, 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 dun,
Definitely there
dun,
for
dun.
second.
Dun, 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 dun.
Oh,
Oh,
no.
why am I way out here in the water?
I don't know. I don't like it.
Y'all
We're
can
gonna
beat
go
me
back.
in. I can't even go faster. Like,
thought
there's
you were
no way
Michael
to go
Phelps.
faster.
Hit R and start over.
No. It
You
really.
just let it
That's
roll.
what I did. I was middle of the water too. My little tugboat wouldn't go fast enough, so I hit R.
You're probably right. That would have been faster, but okay.
I will point
You're
out.
right. You're
Nico,
right.
Nico,
I'll accept
Nico.
that. I'll accept that. I lost
Let's go.
because I was stubborn.
1, 2, 3, 4, let's go. I'm not lost. What the heck?
I
I
lost
will
because I was
point out.
stubborn.
I'm very shocked at how quick Lady gets the hole.
In the hole?
the
She's
hole.
already
I'm an
there.
expert.
I mean,
She's already in the hole.
I let you have that one, Mona. I didn't go
A
fast
minute.
enough.
Barely.
A minute to win it.
She gave me a head start. That's what it was.
well, was it? Well, here.
She was
fucking-
she was
Yo,
giving
to
me
be
a tip.
honest, It was like 30 seconds.
Hold on a
Because
minute.
I was right behind that shit too.
Did you say that Lady gave you the tip?
Yes, I
Yeah.
did.
Pretty
I'm getting
much.
in
Pretty
the
much.
I always give her the tip.
Just the tip.
Hey, I'm fucking shocked. Your decorum is shocking. Absolutely shocking.
I mean, we do share a bed when I'm over there.
Yo,
I thought
7 seconds. What the? What
I
the?
thought that you were like really
Didn't
nice,
I do something?
pleasant
No.
people.
All right,
You
whatever.
The only time we didn't share a bed was when I was sick.
Oh, lady,
Yeah.
of course, she's got tens
She had the
of
cooties.
seconds on me.
To be fair,
She had the
lady,
cooties, I didn't want the
you've
cooties.
always got blood.
Tens
You've
of
always got
seconds.
And I didn't get the cooties.
What the?
Nope, you did not.
What is that? Why is that in my way?
Just fuck you.
Yeah, no, I got that.
I keep going too hard, too
I got
quick.
that. I got that.
I'm sorry, that's
Sorry,
What?
I take a
the best
couple,
response I can give you.
ID Pro ads.
Stood in the life.
Get some food.
Wow.
Do you know what? A little bit
Do it,
of that.
Swan. Say ooh ooh.
No, don't you fucking say it. Don't you fucking say it.
Yeah, Dreams loves it.
Don't you say
He
it.
loves it when
Don't you
Splits
say it.
does ooh ooh.
You're not allowed to say it.
It's
No,
the
you're not allowed
best.
to say it.
It's
You're not allowed to say it.
the best.
It's not even
Don't
the.
miss
It's
your
not even the whole
rest.
ooh ooh. It's the way in which
whoa.
it's said.
Whoa! I went in.
It's
I
the
don't
way in which
think
it's
so.
very
Dude.
tight.
Never mind.
It's very what?
I don't know. It's already over, dude. What do you want to talk about now?
Yeah,
I'm already in.
I'm not doing the ooh ooh thing.
I don't know, bro.
Come on, Dreams. Give us an ooh ooh.
No, it's a hard pass.
Can you give us
Oh yeah. You gonna give us an ara?
I'm letting the music
I got a
right
hole
now,
in one on
too,
that one
so
too.
I'm
Look at me, guys.
Yeah,
gonna mute
That's
myself.
3 seconds.
lady. I consider us equals. It's fine.
I mean, don't get me wrong.
You're always right there before I could ever wedge my way in. Okay.
Just hold that.
No.
You just hold that. Ara. Ooh.
Totally different when
Oh,
Kimono says it.
it's like jump over, stop, turn around, and get in the hole.
Jump, stop,
Can't
get
jump
it,
on
get
the
it.
that.
concrete.
No, you can't. It's
jump.
rigged. You can't
It
jump
is
on the
rigged.
concrete here.
Yeah.
It's,
I did. Did I
That's what-
not?
It's rare, but you can.
I
Rarely.
can't. I
I
can't
fucking
get
did
it.
it.
To work.
Yeah, I can't get it to work neither.
What the hell?
Everybody watch
You're
back what
halfway
I
across
did.
the
I went right
ramp.
beyond the
Jeez.
hole and right into the hole.
Then you gotta jump over the conveyor belt.
What are you acting in?
Oh, what the fuck? Just
Look,
Because I
in the
like to
context of
give people a
golf.
hard time.
Look, if you have other
not always a
connotations,
girl.
that's
Duh.
your problem. Okay.
I mean, I
I
have.
may be part E-girl. I do have cat ears.
I got her.
I'm just saying. I'm just
It's the
saying.
Got her
inmate.
to E-girl ears.
I made it in.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
Oh wow.
Put the mic up here.
Okay, maybe
Oh
you
my
should
God, my
hit
mic went
S
limp.
before you hit the flames.
I just had her go.
That
like,
wasn't good enough. My mic went limp.
Hit S. Oh wow! Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. The whole I wasn't good enough could have just spurred me
I don't
on.
mean
you
to
know?
be a dick, but
That
really.
makes me hard.
What?
What?
Yeah.
Did you realize that this is all a joke?
Oh wow.
I don't think.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Oh god! I hit the wrong side.
We take
It's
those.
so
Let's
funny.
go!
I might as well
Get-
just-
Oh, who hit
Whoa,
me?
Why did it send me up this way? That was amazing.
Oh,
It was.
I'm in.
yeah. Oop, oop, get it, get it. I need an ASMR mic for times like this. Oh, yeah? Oh, yeah.
I will drive.
Hara.
Beat you up. I'm
To
driving.
be honest, if you
But I will drive.
don't
Rain's gonna come beat me
I
up
might
now.
not be here. I don't know. I mean, like, I could get along with it, but no. No.
No.
Fucking bitch.
It's relaxing though, right?
Oh, sure.
It's a totally different fucking ASMR, I'll tell you that for nothing.
Just don't put it on YouTube since they're They hate ASMR on YouTube? Oh, I didn't know
I was
that.
not even
So they
trying to
like
help
ban
you.
ASMR on YouTube?
They hate MSR?
What do you mean? I got fucked
I don't know. Tell me. I don't know anything about ASMR on YouTube.
Tell me how they hate
Tell me
ASMR.
more.
Hey, oh yeah, sure. We fucking don't you fucking go into the cataclysm or whole.
Bro, I will. An entire song.
Cataclysm.
I'll make you believe it.
You know what's fucking weird? The last couple of games I've been good, and now as soon as you mention that fucking sort of shit, I'm sitting
Is
there
that
thinking,
true?
fuck you, cunt.
You fuck.
That was the 2 seconds.
That's because we're making
Somebody
noise.
hit me past.
Yeah, they've been
I was
banning
supposed
ASMR
to
content
land
for
in the
YouTube.
hole.
Oh, wow. I guess because it depends on what kind of ASMR content it is, but yeah, I get it.
Oh, is it like that? Like.
There are people that don't sexualize it and actually do like relaxing noises just to be noises, so I wonder if they get banned too, or if it's just those that sexualize it.
Sometimes
I don't sexualize it at all. But,
playing golf here. Nothing else, nothing
Scratchy,
scratchy.
I generally don't, but the thing is, it comes down to
I can't stand whispers.
Whisper.
the top of the voice.
I just ended up back at the beginning. We will talk about it. Woo. No, I don't want to be behind this house.
Oh, sorry.
The only thing that kind of makes it crazy.
No, not even that. They're going after it all. The 12-hour nature sounds are okay, but the ASMR versus orbs are not. That's so weird. Some people actually find it like stress relieving, if it's not like weird.
Nah, the only thing
I like the sounds. I don't like the
It's always
sound.
weird. Oh, do
Yeah.
I hear like the combing of hair and like everything else to go?
Yeah, like if they're using like props. I don't like the voice.
Yeah,
I mean, when they're
Like
licking the microphone, that's messed
Yeah,
up.
that's
But you know,
That's weird.
but
Heath Ledger.
So,
One of my
I mean,
favorite sounds is.
but
like,
I shouldn't judge. I've watched it just out of curiosity.
Just
So.
like my like how
so
y'all
there's
like
some
that.
ladies in here, right? Y'all use hairbrushes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
nah.
So like real up close, the sound of like running your
Okay,
hand over.
so I got one for you.
Yeah, the hairbrush sound bothers me.
I got a definite one for you.
I like the fingernail sounds though because it just, I don't know, I like have had fingernails, so that sound is just like, I don't know. I just like rolling my nails when I have them.
Okay,
So them tapping their nails on things,
Yeah.
I think that's cool. I like it.
Nails on things, it's okay, that's cool, that's
I
fine.
don't know. I was trying to do the same thing, but it didn't happen.
So when it comes
I removed a video of a
to
stenographer, someone who makes sound effects for movies, right? Oh my gosh.
I've got
That's so weird.
Whoa, no, I messed up. Reset.
Sounds like they were wrongly removed.
so I've got two.
Because YouTube's really harsh
First
like
one
that.
is like rain. or
They don't
something
actually
on
check. Somebody says remove them and they get removed.
Whatever the fuck it might be. That's the
And
first
there's false
one. The
narratives.
second one is like,
Or
see if
fantasy
someone's
narratives.
doing like what's it called, like an otoscope, or like someone's like doing an eye examination.
Mhm.
Where they're close to the mic and they're kind of like.
It's all going to hell.
That's a massive
It's just-
trigger.
Just
Oh, no,
people with like
massive trigger.
hate issues.
It's the soft voice. That's all that fucking does it.
I don't like the voice. I'd like it if it was like my wife's voice, but
Yeah, like I think that's the idea, that it would be like
in the microwave and whispering.
somebody you're obsessed
Why is
with
it sending
voice,
me all
but
the way over here?
And also Tom Hiddleston.
You motherfuckers.
right? If
have
Tom Hiddleston was
no
doing
fucking
ASMR,
idea.
you'd be listening.
That's all okay.
Right?
Who?
A minute.
Low key, Tom Hiddleston, she'd be totally listening if he was doing
I
ASMR.
just love Tom Hiddleston in general. I mean, it's amazing, but
I think
Do you know what?
any of us book romantics would not mind ASMR if it was certain scenarios.
oh, I hate That man could read me a book.
I will point out the fact that that man
Just because his accent.
is a very good fucking dancer, and I will always.
No, it's,
Oh no.
it's really not just because of his accent, Silent. Like, he's just that great of a person.
I'll be fine with the fact that Dreamwave.
What serious, Meadow? Do I tell? Do tell? No, I'm not telling anything. That's part of the girls' book club.
I mean, his accent's great. Don't get me
What
wrong.
happens in book club stays in book club.
Yeah, that's all girls' book club. We don't talk about girls' book club.
In
God
Scotland,
damn.
we have to have a more
Closer
harsh
there,
accent.
Dream.
There's a few guys here then.
I would
Just saying.
Kimono blushes so much
Oh,
because
no.
she's
I
flustered
do.
easily.
And
I
everything.
would
Let's just be
definitely
real.
say that he has
Woo!
way
Going
of
round, rabbit, round, rabbit, round.
Right round, right round, like a record, baby,
Round,
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 round.
baby, right, round, right, right, round.
Oh, I hate this one.
Way up.
Oh,
Yes, sir.
So he definitely has like
Oh.
a great
Kimono,
way of-
like
a
2
great
point
way of,
something excellent seconds before me.
But
Barely.
incredible
Barely
dancer.
before
Like,
you.
that's-
Hey, at least I got in there
all the
first.
fact-
You know.
whatever,
That's what I said.
all
2
my
point
heroes, I will
excellence.
Thanks for being a gentleman.
2 point excellence.
You're very welcome.
Hey, game in second.
He's an incredible dancer.
Excellent. Both got 60.
So good.
Oh my gosh, I'm not in last place! Rain with 28. That just doesn't seem possible.
Nerd.
That's
I
impossible,
know,
Rain.
with the next closest being 60.
I know, double her points. Like, really? Really?
We could,
Really?
do you know what?
Can we talk about this?
Lady, I know you're not cheating, but like totally you are. Okay?
We should be taking like,
It's
you
rigged.
know,
She's
the
cheating.
probability of
It's
having
totally
Hold
rigged.
on, I literally said this before and I'll say it again. She's very good at speed.
She's so speedy.
Speedy, Speedy? That's her
from
new
what
name,
I've heard-
Speedy. That's it. She's Speedy.
Speedy.
From what I've heard, she's very
She's
good
speedy.
at putting balls in holes.
Hi, Speedy.
You know what I mean?
Nope,
Now I think of
I
the
haven't heard
superhero
before.
with Speedy.
Nope, that's an archer. Not anything
Yeah.
to do with the Flash.
What is it? Who's
You
the
want
name?
ants?
Has the name
Is
named
this how you
Speedy?
get ants?
That would be Green Arrow's.
Not
sidekick.
Green Arrow, but his sister, yeah. Speedy.
Y'all
I don't
be
need
lightning
these comics,
briefing
guys.
me on.
I'm a Marvel girly, and I have no idea how.
Well,
to
this was a
put that
TV
in TikTok, and I'm
series, so
kind of
that's why I
upset about
remember it. This was a TV series,
From
so I
Arrow.
remember. Yeah.
You've been
His
around
sister.
watching Flash and Ted Berry.
Alright, we doing more or are we done?
I already quit.
For whatever.
Don't care.
Okay,
I'm
so
starting
I
to
guess
get
we're done.
sleepy.
We're
Yeah,
done.
we're
Guess we're done. No more speak off.
Do you know what?
Escape! Run!
You're done. You're fucking. You're done.
Out! Run!
You're done.
Throw the towel in.
Do you know what? Pack your balls up. Put
Pack
them in a
your
little
balls.
bag.
Pack your balls
Little
up,
bag.
dude.
Pack your balls up, people! It's time!
Just, you know what? You're done.
You're done.
You're done.
We're
You're done.
just done. That's it. That's what's up. We're just done.
Well, maybe not. I don't know. Who knows?
Fuck 'em up. You're done. Had to
Typing
keep
tired
you
is a bad
done.
idea, right? Playing tired is a bad idea because you say things you shouldn't. That's me every Friday.
I was up at 5 o'clock this morning to go over to the island and
Split?
do my
Yeah,
job.
thank you so much for the 10 gifted subs to the community.
And what I will
Jeez,
say,
Splints.
when you're
It did
tired
scare me.
is, you're done.
Wow. Thank you
Oh,
so
I
much.
didn't realize I would do that to the screen. Wow.
Simmy! Wild.
You know how,
So many. Nick Dothy, Jammy, Silent, Dash Ketchum, Slow Hand
Mr.
Fred.
Squidge just aced it with a hole in one.
Corey has
generosity.
gas.
Wait, am I supposed to read that? That seems out of pocket.
Salty.
Okay, it does that when you get
Mr. Splints just aced it with a hole-in-one of generosity. Gifted 10 subs like they're playing golf with your friends on a Friday. That's 40 subs in total, making the community feel more like family. Thanks for teeing up the fun and support. KimonoKat's hype train.
Do you know how I know you're done?
Thank you, Splits. What?
You're done,
Ow.
boy.
You're done.
Hey,
That's
back
awesome.
her up.
Thank you, thank you, Splits.
Back her up, you're done.
Thank you for sharing the love to the community.
I forget how it goes. Is it that way? I don't know.
We just finished, but thank you. Welcome to the stream.
Could you imagine?
We just what? Aww. Can you imagine what?
I'm just gonna extend
Splits is like being quiet now. He like meant to say something and then he was like, well, that was a bad thing to say, so I'm gonna pull back my reactions on what I was gonna say.
How do you have to know me so well? It's not fair.
Yeah, I mean, I've known you for how long now? I don't know. Follow age.
Oh, it's like at least 5, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it feels like more because we're like here every week, a couple days.
Mm-hmm.
Yup.
I'm using my hospitality to Kono.
Is Mona that done because she looks like she just finished celebrating 4th? No, I did not. I'm just tired. It was a really long week.
Get her high, silent. She won't let me.
So good. I'm gonna stay my hospitality.
You get to see me after a few glasses of wine, but that's about it. Not gonna let my inhibitions go too wild.
That you're not as loud as you think you are.
Yeah, because every can't fucking mute me. That's fair.
No, we're all on silent. She is doing a stream.
Well, no, I mean, they can hear you, but you're not super loud. I'm the louder one, obviously, because...
Yeah, for obvious reasons.
I've seen you plastered. Probably.
I wouldn't say plastered.
Probably.
I
Not
mean...
enough that you're not functional.
No, I've always functioned on stream. So... I get quite tipsy, but I always make sure I'm not too much on stream. Now, off stream and Discord, maybe a couple times.
Well, I tell you what.
Oh, I've seen you all plastered. Are you leaving?
You're no, I'm a fuck. I'm gonna be here.
Oh, okay.
Silent, you have
but
not.
Your hospitality has been incredible, and
It's fair.
Comcast been incredible to try and emphasize these sponsors that you've got. So I think it's fucking
What?
Like Comcast?
Well, I wouldn't say what do you call it? Like when you overcast, like when you've got a sponsor and you fucking just like, you know, make it incredible. You do well at it. So I think
Well, I don't know. If you want me to read an ad roll, I'll read an ad roll. But
well, I mean, there's been moments when it sounds like it sounds like an ad. I won't lie to you. It sounds like an ad.
no,
and
that's
you've
on
done really
purpose
well
because
at it.
I've been asked to read an ad roll.
Well, it
You
sounds like
do well on the radio channel on your own.
So
Nobody
you
expects me to read an ad roll like just out of nowhere.
I mean, at the end of the day, you fucking speak English and you can do it when you're pissed. So it sounds like a perfect ideology for the
I
channel.
remember
man.
the chat and everything. Okay. So, guys. Are y'all ready for dark stream soon? Because I think I'm about ready. I think I've got everything set up. And, to remind you guys what I will be painting. It's been a while since we talked about it because a lot of things happened in between. But this is gonna be the next painting.
Please tell me it's fucking Mewtwo.
No.
Good
Yeah.
job.
Go fuck
We should
yourself.
get see that a bit better.
Nope.
Hey, speaking about painting, how is my painting doing and where is it?
It's doing wonderfully amazing. I should
It
go
has
get it.
not come off the wall yet.
I
have
should go
not
get it. I
stolen
should take it off
You're
the wall.
fine.
Yeah.
Gengar?
Because it is well within reach when I'm at Mona.
with all sincerity, with all
Rain,
sincerity.
But
Rain,
she'll notice if I take it.
Rain. I would never ever hit a girl, but I will fight you, girl. I'll fight
I
you.
know you will.
Me and you're gonna throw dukes. I'm just saying.
And here is the beautiful, amazing Ghost Eevee. Mysterion. The ghost evolution of Eevee. She's
That is
beautiful.
actually fucking majestic.
Yeah. Ghost evolution.
Can you buy
That
it?
is the first painting.
And do you guys remember how you get a ghost Eevee? The morbid truth?
The brick.
The-
Hit it in the
Do
head
we
with the
remember
brick.
this conversation?
Yes, it's you evolve an Eevee with a brick to get a ghost evolution. I will let your mind figure it out.
A brick
Poor-
stone.
Poor Eevee.
Okay, I'm
You can
glad
either throw the brick
it
at
looks
the
as amazing as it did
Eevee
the
or it
last time. I'm
drops
glad
on
it's
it.
still
Yeah, it's still 100% intact and beautiful.
It is very
I haven't
I'll
stolen
be
it.
honest with you, mate. I'm fucking so jealous. Like, I can paint, I can do all sorts of shit,
I think
but I can't make it as vibrant as that.
so. I'm hoping this one turns out just as vibrant, but more in purple shades, of course. So,
How long
I'm
did
ready.
it take you to
Oh, it's
do that
upside
ghost
down?
Eevee?
it's upside down. A dead zombie.
I'm like, fucking.
I can't believe I didn't think of a flying type Eevee though.
Hmm.
I'm just gonna say it right here, right now.
And then here was our horrible sketch of the Umbreon.
General honest.
They
At some
have
point,
Dittos. I don't even remember why there was dittos on the moon. I think we were drinking that night, but there's dittos on the moon.
Yeah.
I don't want Dittos. I want fucking Mewtwo's.
We know what you
Yeah.
want.
Yeah, I didn't make it to that drawing. That one hasn't been made yet, but that is one of them. It's a 3-piece set, and it's
Fucking
Gengar, Umbreon, and Mewtwo. But I didn't make it to the doing the
Why are you
drawing.
streaming her stream?
I was not initially intending to do that.
I don't know.
Streaming us.
I was streaming something else originally. I'm so glad you finally noticed after 5 hours of everybody else just
It
being
wasn't,
like, oh,
dude. It
it's
was
totally
like literally
normal.
I've
8
been watching
seconds. You
it.
just booped in. I'm like, who just beeped in? Splints is streaming Mono's chat or Mono's
You, what me?
stream in Discord.
No. I did not add a new stream. You just noticed it.
What?
I did not add a new one.
Looks like Japanese robot Umbreon.
No, I
Yeah,
have
it
a
looks
string.
like kind of
I don't know if that's it.
evil looking.
Don't
Those are
make
supposed
me
to be
with the
like this
strawberry.
ditto is supposed to be like on the moon or something. I don't know. We were doing dittos on the moon. I don't know why.
Jiggly
But the
Jiggly.
idea that it's a 3-piece set and each one's using Shadow Ball because they all have that ability.
Mm-hmm.
I just haven't did it yet. The other sketch was in here that day we did the fast drawings, and I don't remember, but we did the ramen dragon. Like, wasn't that like a 1-minute drawing or something? I can't
I
remember.
remember this.
Yeah, we did like a 1-minute
That was
drawing.
awesome. Yeah.
We did a ramen dragon with
Yeah.
Uh,
This was AI inspired.
with
Yeah.
fish, and then chopsticks. There's like fish in the ramen and stuff. Yeah, we created an
that was
AI out of it. I think after the fact.
Okay, we know.
It was yeah, it was after that.
After the fact, we took that
That's
and
awesome.
created AI. Diglett, yeah, it is Diglett. You're right. I don't know why I said Ditto. I blame the wine.
They could be a
I'll
ditto.
blame all.
Yeah, it's totally
They could be
Diglett.
dittos.
It's totally Diglett.
Yeah, but it could be a ditto looking like a
And they were
Diglett.
digging holes in the moon. That's all I remember.
Yeah, I don't
That's
think
all I
Ditto-
remember.
I don't think Ditto knows dig, does he?
That's kind of weird. Why would you do that?
I don't know.
Ditto
Holes
could
in the
copy
moon.
it, though.
So I gotta sketch Umbreon, but I wanted not Umbreon, but Mewtwo. But I just want to do him justice, and I haven't done it yet.
I really would fucking. I'll pay for it. I'll pay for
There
it.
will be 3. It will be a 3-piece set. It's just gonna take me a little time, but I'm hoping to get into some more painting streams.
The first thing I want to say to you is, see when you do do a painting, like I know obviously you do this kind of incredible painting that you create as a one element.
Mm-hmm.
But, I would love for this next paint that you do to split it into quarters. And I've seen these things on Facebook and YouTube where they make certain different kind of things for each quarter. Where it's like maybe the first one might be like end drawing, but they make it look like it's highlighted, like
Page 2 to the vaccine, yes.
and then the next one might be like it's a fucking I don't know, like a watercolor, and the next one might be like something else, but they all kind of
Interesting.
tie together.
3 types of media.
The rip coat, the duct tape. So when they take it all off, it's like 4 different kind of medias.
Interesting. Yeah, because this one, I just plan on doing all the same media. They're all 3 going to be oil paint, but they all 3 are going to go together and tie together as far as colors and the shadow ball technique. So it'll be interesting. I just got to figure out how to frame it all. We'll figure it out. I'll figure it out as I go. I gotta do the last drawing to tie it all together.
I know what I'm saying is probably a bit fucking random, but I'll send you demonstrations of what.
Yeah, send me some examples. I'm always up to see cool art ideas.
It looks like fluorescent, like obviously they put the white highlight between, and it makes it look more graffiti wise.
Lady's already reading.
Yeah.
Oh,
Anyway,
Splint.
sorry. The problem
Chat.
is I know what I'm trying to say.
You have an
but I
announcement.
Can I read this one? Can I read this one?
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Hold on.
All right, Wiggles
Oh.
is announcing.
Shit.
Wiggles'
Okay,
turn.
Game on, my God.
This may be a mistake.
Ad break, Wiggles.
No, it's okay. Splints is muted anyway.
Go ahead, Splints. It's all you. You got this.
Oh, jeez.
No? No? You want me to do it?
Splits, you're muted.
You're muted. You gotta start over. We can't hear you.
You're right. I've been muted. Thank you for your support during these ad breaks. Be right back soon. Newcastle update from Kimono's chat room. The chat's been a wild ride with ASMR talk. Elusive Pokemon escapes and a hype train powered by KimonoBot's emote frenzy. Look out now. Longtime followers are celebrated while the gang reminisces about past shenanigans, anticipate future painting streams. I mean, that's what we do, right? Speed golf's done, but the chat's just begun, and it's stay tuned for more fun.
Yes.
I mean, I took a little bit of liberty with that, but
No, that's okay. You're allowed
What were,
to.
we talking about? What were we talking about earlier? Wasted?
Wasted?
I just read an ad roll. You want to try?
I mean, go
You
for
know
it.
what? Dude, I've never heard somebody speak in cursive so well as much as you just did right now.
Well, did you enjoy it?
Yes. He's smiling, so he
Okay.
enjoyed it regardless. So that counts for something.
I am quite sure that was all one word.
Yeah, there was definitely
Kitty Cat
just like
Shadows
chat-
person
let's let chat say,
celebration.
Hey chat, what do you think?
I don't care what all you are gonna say. He done fucking incredible well, cause half tough. And
Shut
second,
the hell up, dude. Let me make fun of my friend, okay?
Oh.
Make fun of my friend and you
I'll make fun of both of our friends, right?
Speak loudly. Kitty Cat Shadow Person Celebration. Lol. It was fun.
Oh no.
I mean, I don't know. How does that feel to have your chat messages read?
Yeah, it was there.
It was fun. Yes, it was fun.
If you're gonna take the piss out of
Sound a little bit like Marty Short. I don't even know what Marty Short is. Okay, are you talking about like Shorzy? Is that like a thing? Am I missing out on not watching Shorzy?
It was just kind of more like, and here we are, taking the piss out of Splints. But here we are, taking the piss out.
Dude, if you thought they were taking the piss out of me, you were mistaken.
No.
So, okay, here's the thing, dude. Okay, so for me,
I struggle massively with that sort of shit.
Party Shore is a comic. Okay, I will look that up.
Party Shore is a comic.
It means you're important to me in my life.
Dude, I know.
Because,
that's why I'm not upset. Like, I'm like, if you bother to take the time to take the piss out of me, I must mean something to you.
Do you know what's good about it, Splints?
What?
You got a wiggle below you.
I'm very wiggly.
Wiggly what? Wiggly? Wiggly's not a word.
Wiggly.
No, you got a wiggle below.
There go them cursive words again.
Wiggly.
That wasn't a curse word.
He's wiggly.
Like, someone's got a splint, so they must have.
If you combine 3 words all together and comes out as just like one word, that is. Cursive.
Yo, it sounds pretty good, right? Like wiggly. It sounds pretty like legit.
I wonder.
Marty Shore, yeah. That's how you know a guy cares. The insults and jabs are more personalized.
Yeah.
And then occasionally
they're wiggable.
Like,
Absolutely.
I'm very wiggly.
We need to coin that term.
Yeah.
No, it's no good. We're all bad.
So many things that could be fucking like
wiggleable.
You guys are great.
Wig out.
But this is now.
Can we wiggle to the Wimbledon?
We do not.
My Wimbledon biggie begins.
Wiggle to the Wimbledon.
Wiggle to be the
Alright.
Here.
Alright. Is it time? Is it time to call it?
Negative.
I think.
Maybe.
I mean stream.
Who knows?
So.
Marble.
Marbles? What the heck?
Marble.
What are marbles? I could roll a couple. We can roll a couple. Let's see.
You don't have to.
No, let's do it. Let's do it.
You know what I mean?
I understand how you feel because
Not
they
like
hit
that,
me up.
Ian.
They hit me up and they're like, "Oh, let's play friggin' whatever game," and I'm like, "Yeah, fine, whatever." It's nice.
Just
I'm saying. Wiggles. Know what I'm saying?
Singing.
I was just wondering if you were aware of what I was saying.
Marbles.
Are you aware of what I'm saying? Do you know what I'm meaning?
I love this as a private joke. I fucking love this. Know what I'm saying? Yes,
I just want to make sure that you are aware of the
I
word
just
that come out.
Fanta.
Not in my mouth.
One second, please.
Uno second window.
The only reason I make fun of it is because I feel so much not even a part of it.
Do you know what?
Play.
You shouldn't feel that way. This is an incredible.
I should feel that way. Wow, thank you for that commendation.
I said you shouldn't.
Oh, okay.
Have you seen what's going on right now?
Hey, you are not the boss. You are not the boss of the lady. Okay?
We're on a Friday night.
She could be.
But I want
Ball had
cat.
But she wants to be.
Play, play, play. Get your marble on the chart, guys. Let's go. If you're lurking and listening and you're a Marbles fan, now is the time to roll. Let's go.
What did I type? Nothing, because I was on the wrong friggin' window.
Exclamation, play, space, and your number.
There we go. I got it in.
Space doesn't matter. I just do a space.
Yeah.
I just do space with you.
Play, 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 play. Get your marble on the track.
Boy, you ain't ready for the level weird. I'm ready to take this.
We're starting Grand Prix.
Let's go, weirdos.
Oh, Dreamweaver got his booty burnt. 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 You got burnt.
Dream.
They're too busy looking at their belly dancer outfit. What?
Field and got
BattleCat, blood.
Hey, you don't want to get that
Welcome to the game. I think you just missed it, but welcome.
After a week, I've had to.
Okay, we're not following. As a friendly reminder, we're not following anybody.
We can abet, in fact.
Meow, meow, meow. Welcome, ladies and los. Welcome to the stream.
How's it go, Kimono?
Meow, meow, meow. Meow, meow, meow.
Oh, that doesn't fucking surprise me.
Splits does it best. Let's give a shout out to bloody zealous. That's cool.
Maybe there is, maybe there's not. Here
What
we
the
go.
heck
Down the
game was
Taylor's
this?
not.
I've seen playing. Oops, I slept with your mom. What the hell kind of game is that, bloody? Please explain.
Hold on a minute.
Oops, I slept with your mom? I don't even know. That's wild as fuck. Yo, that's a whole new level. We gotta talk about that. We can't just let that go.
Is that possibly have
Thank
something
you,
to do
man.
with? Is that have something to do with possibly with our band name?
Slept or slept?
Loose
What do
hash
you mean? What do you mean? The loose hash browns?
Loose hash browns. Oh my god, guys. You guys are killing me.
No.
Nani?
Loose hash browns are
Neko-chan
totally
here.
normal.
This
Loose
magical
hash browns. No,
streamer
no,
is
no,
a
loose hash
chill
browns
gamer
is
who
fine.
loves horror games and electric
Excuse me?
music. They're possum at Crash 'em
Horror.
Derby and being mean flicking Flash Fridays. Their streams are hysterical and full of formidable catitude. Don't miss out on the fun, youngsters. Annoying.
Oh, I'm so sorry. All you had to do is say Flynn's read, and I would have read it.
He says that during
No
his
idea.
streams like the whole time. That's his thing.
Here we are now with a different
Whoa! This marble road is like.
Also, how about
I'm sorry. I'm still trying to get over. Be sure to follow
I'm
Bloody
sorry, I haven't
Zealous
been following you.
and blah blah blah. They were last seen playing
Don't miss out on the fun,
slept with your mom.
meowsters.
Thank you,
and
Archie Roku.
Kimono, and
Where
Kimono.
did
Perfect
that
advert for a
come from?
bordello. Oh my gosh.
Where does that come from? Have we
From the
dirtied the
bot.
bots that bad?
The
yet?
bots.
No, they're
this
reading
our
content
fault?
from the stream. They're reading
Yeah,
content
yeah,
from
yeah.
his
So
stream.
yes, it's our
They
fault.
are immune.
Oh,
It's
the
our fault.
bots.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the words that the bot is speaking are things that have been said by us or on that person's stream. 100%.
Yeah.
Poketch, what the
We're gonna
hell
make
kind of
We're gonna make
Diglett
the
is
weirdest
that?
AI robot ever.
a wug trio?
That's the new Paldean one, remember?
I have not seen that one. I've seen the white one on the beach that's very sus.
Yeah,
This one's
That's
this
the
one's
evolution of that one.
okay. This one's weird looking too.
Yeah.
But the white one's even more sus.
Yeah, the one. I don't know. That looks like something it should.
The white one on the beach, I'm sorry, it's
I
terrible.
know. It's shiny and any better.
Okay, guys,
Exclamation
let's
mark.
go. Play. Warriors, get your marble on the track. Let's go. You have 10 seconds. Because I accidentally hit the wrong button twice. I hit start twice, so it ended the. If you didn't make it, I'm so sorry. That's on me. I hit start twice because I didn't think I had hit it yet. And when you do that, it actually just starts the game.
That's it. I'm leaving.
You made it in. You made it in. Dreams is here. Ladies here. BattleCat.
I think
I
I
was
did.
surprised I made it.
What? Come here. Did you forget where you're
Bloody
at?
caught the
Come here.
Pokemon. You caught the weird Pokemon, man.
Come here.
Yes, it's mine.
She's meowing.
Yes, it is mine, my
She
precious.
goes through phases where she forgets where she's at and she starts meowing. Hey, baby.
Aww.
She's old, dude. She's 15. Oh, it's probably dementia, but
She's an old
it's
kitty
not
cat.
that bad. She just forgets sometimes where she's at. She
I mean,
cries
she
when
almost
she
didn't
can't
make
find
it
the house.
once, but that's been like
I
2 years
know.
ago.
Just-
She almost died
2
on
years
us like
ago
2
now.
years ago.
She did.
God
She did
damn.
almost die on us.
She hung in there. She
Yeah,
did.
she's gonna outlive
It was
me.
scary. They had to give her IVs and all kinds of stuff.
I think Mono actually saw the IV because it was hanging in the closet still.
She had to go on like a liquid diet and
Yeah, I had to give her fluids that way.
she literally was eating baby food. Like out of the
She
jar.
Still does.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
She still
When
does.
they're not eating, that's because they're good. I watched my wife feed
Hacks.
some fucking puppy dog.
Yeah.
Baby food.
I didn't have to syringe
What's
feed
funny,
her. As long as I put it in front of her face, she would eat it.
what's
And now
funny
she
is like
eats more.
the baby
I
food
want
that you use
snacks.
for like dogs is
Mhm.
protein based, so it's like chicken flavored steak or chicken. or
No, I
steak.
legit use like baby food, like the Gerber.
Yeah, yeah.
She used like Gerber
Yeah.
baby food, like chicken flavor though, yeah.
So, yeah, Gerber makes the
Mm-hmm.
meat flavored baby food. It absolutely smells terrible.
Little silent
Yes,
fell
it
off,
does.
dreams
It's
fell off, wiggles
so
fell off.
disgusting. It
But
is
she
so
loves
gross.
it.
Oh my god. Oh
I
yeah, yeah.
only get the chicken
Oh,
one. I only get the chicken one,
Yeah.
but she loves it.
But you're right. I mean, you agree, right? As soon as you open it, like that smell
Oh, yeah.
is unmistakable. I can
Yeah.
smell that shit from It
you
smells
can remember
so
it, yeah.
bad.
Like cat food.
So bad. Dude, it's like
Well, no, this isn't cat food. It's literally like legit
baby
baby
food.
food.
Yeah. It's shit that should be fed to babies. Human babies.
And
Why
it's
do you
just
think
because
cat
it's
baby
chicken puree and water. Like that's all it is. It's chicken with
Because it's
water.
in high in protein and
Yeah.
it assists in recovery. Of
That
It's
and
like-
fluids.
Worse than Campbell's cream of chicken soup that you just use as a base for stuff because it has no salt in it, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, at least ours has salt.
A lot of people think.
I think somebody used hacks while I was gone. I stepped away, you saw that, I wasn't here.
Well,
Yep.
sure.
That even more proves that you were using hacks.
Activate.
It's like I just re-upped on
Um,
her wet food though, so we've got a bunch of that now.
I can't.
Didn't move.
It may be just a mentality of mine, and maybe I'm totally speaking out of turn. But cats are
Play, 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 play. Copy pasta, get your marble in check.
mice,
Brooke is, Puddle ain't.
rats, whatever the fuck I want to do, but they hunt
Right.
rabbits, baby rabbits. And my thought on this is,
Dreams.
and I know it might,
Paste.
I
Copy
know it might,
paste.
I know it might fucking trigger some people, but it's like I don't understand why people buy food for the cat.
Because my cats
Yes,
don't
you're a
live in the
sub.
wild.
Yeah,
Splint's
my
gifted
cats
you
live
a
in my
sub.
house,
Bro.
outside of my house.
I
Don't
can
go outside
understand-
ever.
I can understand like home cats and stuff like that. That's cool.
Well, that's what this is.
But
Like,
cats that kind of go out into the wild and they're like, oh yeah, here's a wee bowl for whenever you can't fucking find it."
Because they
that's
need
fine and dandy
food.
when you live out like on a farm, dude. But we live in.
I don't stay on a farm.
I know. I don't either.
Yeah,
I don't
neither do
either.
I.
I still in a rural area that we just don't let our cats roam around the fucking neighborhood. Like,
Yeah.
that's not a no. That's not a normal thing here.
Let's
like,
go.
Yeah, it's not.
Nate,
It's-
my wee bro, who was in here, his cat had an apple.
I tried to paste.
Quite often, cats
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go
they
paste
do,
all them
but
codes in chat.
It's not something we
Um,
do.
and then it went to like a foster family where obviously it was given some food regularly, even despite the fact that he put out food for the cat. Meaning
Winning.
that
The what?
are very independent,
Mm-hmm,
as you all know. But I don't like the idea, the fact that
I know where you're going with this.
they're so independent that
Dude, I know where you're going with this.
fucking hell,
Let's get just a clear understanding. Cats that are cats, like for people, they're a domesticated creature. They are, although yes, they have just the natural wild side of what a cat is. They're a domesticated creature. They are. Will they and are they able to survive on their own outside?
Oh, for sure.
Absolutely. However, they're a domesticated creature. So it's our pets. It's what we've done for literally
Since the Egyptians, right? At least.
Yeah, 100,000 times. You know what I mean? So it's I think you look at it maybe a little bit differently. I look at it more so as like so I'm a dog person, but we have cats, and obviously I'll see Buggy right here next to this bed right here.
That's cool.
They're companion. They're companion.
Dreams has got the lead, followed by Cat and Battle Cat.
In the true sense of a word of what a companion is.
Yep, Dreams has the lead. Dreamweaver.
I fucking don't.
Followed by Battle Cat 828, KimonoKat, and the Lady Rain.
Anytime Kimono says that I have the lead or I'm
Yep.
mentioned in this channel,
Look, there he is.
and about fucking 3 seconds later, I do not have the lead.
He's got the awesome little
Well-known fact. Now this might be
ball with the art on it that reminds me of Hello Kitty.
yeah, but 98% of the fucking time, I do not have the lead. As soon as she mentions that. And actually, I'm gonna actually preface this. Someone will beat me, but because you've mentioned this. It's fucking fact. Someone's gonna beat me because you mentioned this. Anyway, Wiggles.
Allergies.
Cats are an incredible companion. Incredible. But I'm not.
Mention what? If I mention a person's name, they get jinxed and they don't think they'll get first place. It's just a thing.
Dude, you're fucking jinx.
I mean, you already got first place though.
Well, that's only because you said it because it was like fucking 3 minutes away from, or like 2 seconds away from the line. So you're like, oh, he's doing too well. He's fucking beating him.
The winner is Dreamweaver. Congrats.
Fucking, oh, cheers, man. Cheers. We'll see what two pans out.
Alright, we're going on the podium.
Yeah.
Final results.
But yeah, I
Grand Prix.
and Lady.
Drum roll.
Love cats. But
Who will it be? Rain. Third place goes to Dreams. Second place goes to Lady Rain. Uh-oh. Who's gonna get first place? Come on, because it's rigged.
Fucking rigged.
Fucking rigged.
Definitely rigged.
I'm like, I definitely had that one first.
Definitely rigged.
Yes, so I win.
Yeah, so Rain wins. Because I'm not allowed to win. Mwah.
I like that. I like, you know, going across.
I'll be right back. I'm gonna go talk to him.
Okay.
Cats. I like it.
Play, get your marble on track, exclamation play. Hurry, Wiggles, play before you run away. He ran away. We'll have to wait for him to come back. Let's see if anybody else joins in the meantime. Exclamation play if you're lurking and listening and want to join the race. Exclamation play. Okay. I'm probably gonna end after this Grand Prix. I got 3 races. 3 races and I'm done. Because I gotta get some sleep. Oh, now 6 joins us. Look. Party animal out all night. He's out all night partying like a rock star, and then he comes in and hangs out. Hi, 6. It's good to see you, man. Happy Friday.
Leave me to do all the work.
Who is you? Soon these races. I'm out partying? Yeah, party all night. And then you join us at the end of the stream. I tell you, we're gonna do 3 races and we're gonna see who's winning. That's it. We're done. Will you win? Can you win this Grand Prix? I'm trying to give Wiggles a second to get back and join the race. Let's see who else pops in though. Depends on how long it takes him to make his drink. But yes. Welcome to the stream! Welcome. My hair is a mess today. I don't know what to do with it. It's like a wild animal. Rain, I wish I had hair like yours that behaved better. My hair doesn't behave at all.
I mean, I wouldn't say mine does either, but it doesn't.
Party like a rock star. Look like a... Oh no. Every day they go so hard, driving in their sports car. Yes. Party like a rock star. Party like a rock star. Let's see. Splits is partying over there.
Shaking out his hair.
All that hair. Wild man, all that hair.
I would love to see Splits
He's the guest. We're talking about you, Splits. We saw you shake out your hair. Like, ah. He's probably muted again. Yep.
I said I did it on purpose. I was trying to show off like the hair thing.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to say, like, you never know whose hair is doing what.
Yeah, wild hair.
All right, so I just saved some of y'all out there. All right.
Saved us. I'm so confused. I didn't know I needed
No,
saved.
not you. You're fine. Your hair's fine. But I'm talking about other people.
Oh. Okay. Alright, are we starting this race or are we waiting for Wiggles? I don't know how long he'll be. I'll hit start.
Everybody.
He's at 60
doing?
seconds.
Oh, are we talking about golf?
Marbles.
Again?
Marbles. Yeah, you're already on the track. Yeah, you're already on the track. You're good.
I hit garb.
You hit start on golf.
Did I just say I hit start on garbles?
You did. Garbles. Garbles is the new fun game you can play with your friends. It's a combination of golf with your enemies mixed by marble tracks. We call it Garbles. Welcome to the fun.
So you see how I took the humiliation and just...
I loved it. So did I. I loved it. I loved it.
It's fine.
I loved it.
I would never want
I liked it.
or dropping down what you had said.
No,
I
I
think
it's great.
I thought it was cute and I liked it. So I had fun with it. I made it a thing. You triggered my imagination, which is never a bad thing.
And
That's not the point I'm trying to make. You're all like, oh, I've never felt this way with that way with this way. Dude,
Look,
the whole point
they
was
shot back
I
up in the
made a
top.
fool of myself.
And now they're falling
And
back
it was
down.
okay.
Go. Wiggles, you made it. I'm so glad.
I'd like to admit.
it wasn't really like meant to be a foolish thing.
Wiggles made it after all. Guys, poke catch. You want the Pokemon? I don't even know what that one is, but he's cute. Artibox. Artibax. He's like an icy dino. He's so cool.
I love it.
He's cool. And we have 6 who's in the lead. As he goes round and round and round.
I don't mean to be much, but it's okay.
No, you're not too much. If you're too much, we let you know.
Hair.
Nobody calls Pokemon. That's just not fair. 3 of us tried. It's not fair. 6 went flying through the sky and found another funnel.
tweet.
I can't figure out where we're going up or going down.
I think we're going down.
No, you're not.
You know what's really wild is while you listen to birds and you watch that one end statement, you're like, hey.
Did we start from the left or the right?
That's life. It is what it is. I don't know what to tell you.
It is what it is. I say that a lot at work. It's what it is.
Yep.
Same. Actually.
Can't do much about it. You just gotta work with it.
Be ultra scary or
It is what
anything,
it
I'm
is.
just saying.
So where you say it is my genuine, my honest reaction.
You lost Silent BattleCat and Dreams. They fell off the track.
Reaction
Now down to Lady, Six, Splits, and Wiggles.
or no fucks given. Is what it is, and no fucks given mean the exact same thing.
But nobody says that for you, though.
For me, yeah.
Oh, look at Lady trying to make it to the finish line. Will she do it? She's getting stopped. Oh, Splits is coming up on the side. Oh, he got stopped as well.
Oh no!
Oh, Six is gonna come through. Six is gonna come through and steal the win.
Horribly hidden walls. Oh no!
Six
How
is
can
gonna
I
come
ever
through and
foresee-
steal it. Congrats, Six on the win.
Oh no!
Wait.
All I wanna do is get in there.
I don't know where they fell off to though. When you fall off, you're like in
Oh my
the
god!
abyss.
I really actually hate seeing my
Finish
Twitch
line.
profile picture.
It's like a wall. You should change it.
It's an old school.
Oh,
it's an old school,
yeah,
like,
yes.
DayZ thing. Like it made sense at the time.
So
but
it
now
means something
looks-
to you.
Yeah, but it looks so stupid now.
Well, it's up to you. You can change it anytime you want. Good night, Rain. Good luck tomorrow. See, exclamation play, guys, to get your marble on the track. Play, play, play. Jump in quickly. Let's go.
Am I not in the window?
Dun, 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 dun. Copy pasta. Careful what you paste, though.
Got no more fucks to give. I freshly runneth out.
Play whoops.
Be careful what you're pasting in the chat. Folks, we've had everything pasted in the chat lately.
Sometimes we've heard even.
As a number.
We've even heard occasionally.
We have 43 seconds. And Splits just got burnt. His voice is fixing to get even higher.
Thank you for your support during
7.
these ad breaks.
7 it is.
Don't drool. Oh, it says be right back soon.
Be
And then
right
beyond
back.
that-
Hey, 7 is my KimonoKat skin. Yeah, it's
Am
my
I supposed to
KimonoKat
read
skin.
those or the other one? Anyways,
No,
the
you don't
great
have to.
stink of 1858 in London, caused by the Thames River overflowing stench, prompted critical developments in the city's sewage system. Look at you, Mr. Ninja Turtle.
All the loves.
I will not give no shadow of a doubt to that.
Play. Whatever.
Turtles, cheers.
I mean, I can read the other one. It says, which event in the 19th century London was so odorous it spotted major urban legend reforms? Maybe added a word or two there, but you can figure that out for yourself. Point out when the odds
This
end
track's
in
just a
about
little
minute.
hot. Look at that heat. Holy cow, it's like all lava.
I think I've always found that was the.
Oh, there's a new one.
Wait.
Great stink of
It's the same one.
1858. Oh, is it the same one or should I read it again?
It's the same one.
Yeah.
Oh.
I know it's the same one, but should I read it again?
No.
No.
You read it twice. We're good.
Baby,
Like,
don't
we
hurt
know
me.
what it is. We get what you're saying.
Baby, don't
No.
We will.
I'm just sick. Ugh.
I'm not even sorry for that reference.
I'm in it. I'm in it. Let's go.
Baby, don't
All right,
hurt
I'm with it.
me no more.
So okay, hold on. So this is a legit conversation that my wife and I had.
Uh-huh.
Okay, first of all,
Okay.
did
I'd
you
wait a pool.
decide whether or not girls could just have fun?
Hold on. Listen. Okay. So we're all kind of
point
we're
out
hold on.
that
Listen.
men do not often drop from heaven or from the sky.
We're all kind of in a similar age, and I don't know like
It's
what
not
your
really
parents did, but like when I was hanging out with my dad, my now dad, whatever, when I was around 14, 15, 16,
Ooh, get in there.
there was the radio station that for him
Vix is
or for
killing
like,
it.
in that genre was considered oldies, right?
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? So like that was like what 90, like let's say
That's what
95
she
to
said.
2005.
Probably like 96.
There was an oldie station. So
Oh, yeah?
for them, their oldie station, so 99 to 2005 was back like I would say 30 years, 65 to 75. That was what was considered oldies back then.
Yeah.
Dude, we're
That's
essentially
wild for me.
we are essentially in the era now that right now for us 95 to 2005 is what's considered oldies for us. So
Aren't
like
you oldie?
so like Boys to Men, Salt and Pepper, fuck, Tupac, fuck. I mean, all the grunge rock bands, Nirvana.
Hey, Dreams. Your ball's doing great.
My balls always do great.
But you know what I mean? Like, so I was like,
I should have known.
Bro, I'm trying to be like straight up about everything.
Congrats,
So
GG
no,
on the first place.
Cheers.
no, I was saying like there's no radio station like that. Like we need to start a radio station
Death Star War.
that plays equivalent to what's oldies now for us that are in our.
But would you still call it the oldies, or would you call it something else?
I don't know. I don't know what you call it, but you know what I mean. Like it's crazy, but we're in that era now. Like where shit that was 30 years ago is not considered oldies. For fuck's sake. Oh my
It
God.
is considered oldies. You have to get over that. That's your
Oh no,
problem, not mine.
I am over it. I turned 45 in a month. I turned 45
Exclamation
literally a month from today.
Get your marble on the track. Play, 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 play.
So,
Hurry, hurry, hurry.
Dude, there's
Copy
some old
pasta.
shit happening. It's wild.
so if I remember 13 years back, okay.
Can
So-
I just paste? No.
This is like the Star Wars map, so I'm curious what it looks like.
Play.
Almost fun too.
13. Alright, did I win?
TIE Fighter.
We're gonna go 30 years back. Popular song.
Oh, I know. I'm just kidding. I thought.
There's a portal there. Bunch of portals.
I thought it was funny.
Interesting.
Like,
Portals into portals.
Okay.
I wonder what happens when you hit the portals. Guessing you go flying off into space. We'll find out.
Until I hit
Super
that
fast.
portal, you won't know.
Let's find out. Get your booties down here, guys.
It is
Okay,
the
you
plunger.
hey, you guys want to hear what the songs that were popular in 1985? Because I
also
know
wanna
every
hear
one of
what
you in
are
here are
the
gonna know
songs.
this.
In what?
In 1995,
Don't tell me 'cause it hurts.
Gangster's Paradise by Coolio.
Are you serious?
Silent, you fell off. Oh my god, that's so cool.
Why
Fuck
Coolio?
yeah.
Where the fuck is Coolio?
Wow.
Okay. Here's
This
another
map
one.
is cool,
Here's a-
no joke.
Here's another one. You are not
Oh no hacks from the start. She's right in front.
Michael
I didn't
Jackson.
say that way though.
I'm trying to be so nice, but I'm feeling detrimental.
That was,
Be nice.
That was the Michael Jackson's on
Be nice.
Top 10 Hits. Was that during the Macaulay
Ooh.
Culkin Yeah, it was.
Dreams, did you not even hit pace this time? Why?
No, and I'm fucking. Yeah, I'm sending shit to you. I'm fucking sending songs. I've got 2 screens.
Yeah, but you put it in.
And a squirrel
Oh
that's trying to
no,
get
they
it
gonna
all
blow
out.
up the planet?
Mate, I'm a fucking squirrel.
They blew up
I'm
the
fucking
planet.
Here, there, doing that, all sorts of shit.
Alright, Grand Prix final. Who will it be? Can we get a drum roll? Third place goes to Mr. Splints. Congratulations on third place. Second place goes to Wiggles with a cute chickadee marble.
Fuck you, Wiggles.
First place goes to... Can we say Hacks? Let's find out. No, it goes to 6. Congratulations, 6 on being number 1 on the podium. Congrats, congrats! You did it! Congrats!
That's the point I was trying to make.
Woohoo!
That I was third place.
You did! You have the cute pupper. You have the pupper marble.
No.
Oh yeah.
Cute pupper.
That's what I'm saying. It's just pupper ruffle.
Celebration on screen. Woohoo! Thank you for the Dorito. Thank you for the
It looks so
Dorito.
cool. It looks so cool.
I'm really so
Can you
upset
see it now
Okay.
yet or no?
Just have
I can see it when I'm on that screen. So yes and no. It depends on which screen I'm on at the time.
Doritos. If I want to be nice with you, I can't just have Doritos anytime I want Doritos.
I want Doritos.
Here's some Dorito.
Yay! Yeah. It's a bunch of Doritos.
I like Doritos.
Look at all the Doritos. It's funny though, because it doesn't catch any of that stuff on the recording, I don't think, because it comes from actually beyond the video feed, if that makes sense.
I don't make shit up.
It comes from the website.
Anyway, I love it all.
You love it? Well, have a lovely night, everyone. Thank you, Silent. Thank you, everyone lurking and listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for cheering. Happy Friday. And I will catch you guys later this weekend. Definitely Sunday. So, maybe tomorrow. I don't know. We'll see. I might actually stream tomorrow too. We'll see how much energy I have. I'm probably gonna make myself exhausted tomorrow though, so we'll find out. Shocky! Oh, we gotta leave. Shocky's here. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, there's apples. No.
But yeah. Good night, everyone. Take care. I'll catch you guys later. You rest tomorrow. Stream Sunday. Probably will. Probably will. Probably a better idea. I probably won't rest tomorrow though. I'll probably rest Sunday and then stream Sunday afternoon. But yeah. That's the way it goes. Alright. Good night, everyone. I gotta find myself here. Good night.
What happened?